Let's roll. This is Countercharge, your podcast for ranks, flanks, and kings of war. Join your hosts as they delve into the world of Panithor and bring you worldwide coverage of all things Kings of War.
Welcome to Countercharge. I'm Alan Beener.
And I'm Bryce Clark.
And I'm Rob Panoff, and we're back again for a Forces of Nature Army review. We do have two excellent players that have a demonstrated track record with Forces of Nature, so I'm super excited to have them on. So, Alan and Bryce, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Well, Bryce, you haven't been on the show, have you?
No, I haven't. I listen in every now and then, but I've never been on here.
Well, that means we need your origin story. So I know you're old like me, but maybe not as old as me. But I know you've been around the block with tabletop gaming. So, give us your gamer origin story, how you got into tabletop wargaming, and tell us about that route that obviously revolves around Dustin Howard and how you ended up with Kings of War.
Yeah. Okay. Origin story. I don't know. I was some pipsqueak walking through a mall at one of the original GW stores, and I got drawn into Dark Eldar of all armies as a young lad as soon as they had been released, and that was my jump in. Other than like Settlers of Catan, Risk, and stuff like that, but it just kind of progressed. It's some great fluff, some great tabletop gaming, good friends along the way, and played that for a long time. Transitioned to fantasy, and when that kicked the bucket, I moved. The game store I was at was trialing Ninth Age, King's Second Edition, and Age of Sigmar, and we just kind of did a month of each one. And I ended up getting stationed somewhere else, and Dustin wandered to my house to come help me move. One of the 20 times that he's helped me move, and he was like, "Yeah, you should, you really try this game." And he typical Dustin fashion, he put a couple 20-pound dumbbells in a pillowcase and beat me in my own house. And that, not just game table, but it was a full prison yard. And it was my intro. I was hooked ever since. But it was also a great way, the miniature agnostic stuff. Kings, you first look at it doesn't seem as complex and niche as it is. And then the more you play it, the more you understand the just intricacies of the game. And you can use everything. So I kind of hopped in, and Forces of Nature was my go-to when I first hopped in. Just, it's got a little bit of everything. I didn't know which direction I wanted to go, so I was like, "Oh man, this is perfect. I can have a little bit of all of it, and then if I want to, create 100 armies, I can."
Maybe give us a sense of your experience with the Army, especially on the competitive scene, because we know you took it to Masters at least once.
Yeah, so I took it to Masters at least once. I can't even remember what else I took to Masters. I've played Forces of Nature competitively at several tournaments. I think my first tournament was actually Dojo. I was down there for work, and I took my Forces of Nature. And my first game was against, what was the Masters player that used to play Twilight Kin?
Brad McKay.
Yeah. So he was my first official Kings of War game at Dojo, round one, and I had my Forces of Nature, and I can't remember if we got a draw or I think I caught him off guard a bit, but I don't know. Maybe he was expecting me to just be a pushover. But Forces of Nature is just one of those flexible armies. I ended up doing pretty well at Dojo, and then came back. I can't remember if it was Sword of Kings next, and then TNT, maybe Memphis, and then it was Siege of Augusta, and then Masters. I had a really hopping first year going in. I did Lone Wolf that year too, so I got when I got third in battle at Lone Wolf, was with Forces of Nature. And then that same year, I got third at Masters with Forces of Nature. Pretty much the same list. I just kind of took a little bit of everything, but it's just so flexible. And I never felt, I guess, locked into one play style with it. So I could kind of adjust. I could adjust my play style. I didn't have to adjust to meta. Kings is a great game like that, to where the meta is not as much of an effect. But yeah, I've played it in probably 20, 25 tournaments, maybe now.
Well, let's throw it over to the Nerdhammer, man. The King of Nerdhammer?
The King of Nerdhammer we went with on the last one, yeah.
Well, give us your sense. Give us a sense of what we know. You play Forces of Nature, but talk about your experience on the tournament scene with Forces of Nature.
When I originally got into Forces of Nature, I had my elf army, and there was like little components of Forces of Nature in there with like the tree herders and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna dip my toes into Forces of Nature. And it was right before the Greater Air Elementals got the boost. And then when I saw that they were getting the boost, I was like, this is going to be really good. Yeah, I've taken to a couple tournaments, but not, like I like to bounce around with armies. So, but the best I got to do with it would have been at Battle Pilgrims.
Alan, give us your elevator pitch why someone should play Forces of Nature.
In my personal opinion, did you ever want to feel like Captain Planet? Like I love having the fire. Earth,
are you a kid of the 90s?
Yeah, I am a kid of the 90s. Yeah, like that's you ever want to feel like Captain Planet? Bring them all together, and that's your army.
Man, Bryce, it makes you feel old.
My first thing was like the last time I went and saw Earth, Wind, and Fire in Nashville. I was like, "Yeah, this could be a good army."
Yeah, there you go. Right? Yeah, be a good army. They just made my next list. I'm ready to go.
Hey, look,
add those in.
It is what it is.
Yeah, I love the elementals in the list. Elementals sold me for Forces of Nature. Other parts I like too, but it was definitely the elementals that got me.
The one thing I like about Forces of Nature is the fact that it's in shared units with so many other armies.
Yeah,
so exactly. It's like Green Lady and Herd and all these different. There's like cross pollination, even salamanders. So you can like build a Forces of Nature list, and then you're already sort of on your way. To 3 or 4 other different armies.
That's what the elves caught me. I had the forest wardens, the tree herder, forest shamblers. The Green Lady back in 2nd edition was awesome. Defense 6, regen. And she was in Forces of Nature. So it was a great to go from elves to Forces of Nature. It felt like that was my natural next step, and that's why I ended up playing Forces of Nature.
Yeah, they're such a good feeder army.
Yeah.
Well, let's take our first commercial break, and on the other side, we'll cover the history of the Forces of Nature Army and Kings of War, the model range available, and we'll hit the highlights of the background. We'll be right back.
I'm Ronnie from Mantic Games, and you're listening to Countercharge.
And welcome back to Countercharge. And in terms of the Forces of Nature Army list, that didn't actually get released until Kings of War 2nd edition hit in 2015. So if we go all the way back to 2010 when they released the beta for Kings of War, the only 3 factions they had were Elves, Dwarves, and Undead. And even in 2012 with 1st edition, again, no nature. But back in 2nd edition, in 2015, we did get our first army, and it had different special rules that I want to share with you because I think they're pretty cool. The first special rule is called Creatures of Nature. All units in this list have the Pathfinder special rule, unless specified otherwise. The other special rule they had were called Wild Companions. A wild companion is a feral animal that is bound by magical means to a druid or other master of the natural lore, or simply allied or in thrall to a particular race or creature. Mark units that are accompanied by a wild companion with a suitable model, a panther, bear, wolf, hawk, etc. The unit can then unleash the beast once per game. This is the same as using a Fireball 5 spell with Piercing 1, remove the animal model once it has been unleashed. So it's really interesting to think about those special rules, and while they don't exist as special rules anymore, certainly a lot of the army does have Pathfinder. And we see the Wild Companion rule, probably really started as the Mastiffs in the Dwarf army, but there's several armies that have that ability to launch animals, in a shooting attack. And in terms of 3rd edition or even 3.5, really the special rule is the same. It's Frenzied Otter, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And, I don't think I'm underselling it when I say not many people find Frenzied Otter a compelling special rule. Next, let's review the model range available for Forces of Nature. As I mentioned, we didn't get an army list until 2nd edition, so it will come as no surprise we didn't have any models until that point too. So nothing in 1st edition, and it wasn't really until 2014, when the Kings of War 2nd edition Kickstarter launched, that we saw our first concept art for the Forces of Nature. And by and large, what they showed us is what we got. And it's really interesting to think about, like the plastic salamander sprue, which is still in use today, looks very much like what they showed us in concept form. Same thing with the naiads, which became a plastic sprue as well. I think the forest shamblers, I think maybe the concept art is a little bit taller and lankier, more like a tree man than what we actually got, but again, very similar aesthetically. The one unit that we do have an interesting story on is for the Druid. The Druid model, at one point, they had made concept art that had the Druid look like Felicia Day from The Guild, for those that are old enough to remember that show on YouTube. For whatever reason, the licensing didn't ever come to fruition, and so they pivoted and have this other Druid model that we still have today. So in terms of the model range, if you're looking for a complete range, Force of Nature is pretty solid. They make most of the units, right? And I think that's mostly because the units are doubled in other armies. The units are shared in other armies. So greater earth elementals are in dwarves, or salamander primes are in salamanders, centaurs in herd, etc., etc. And in addition, they have really great support for STL files. So fire elementals, greater fire elementals, water elementals, greater water elementals. Got the tree herder, you've got worm riders, and then this month we got the air elemental regiment along with the greater air. So great STL support. And as part of the failed Kings of War RPG Kickstarter, they did release a set of STL files that were created for that Kickstarter, and one of them is super cool for Force of Nature. It is a Lynx model, so it's just like it's an unarmored Lynx that you could use as a battle cat, right? Which, that would be pretty sweet. In terms of, unsupported units, they do not make a Beast of Nature. They don't actually make an actual just generic Pegasus. They do make a unicorn that is available through their Dungeon Adventures line, which is pretty awesome, but they don't make a Hydra, they don't make Hunters of the Wild, and they don't make a Kapoka. But, they have most everything else. So in terms of lines, it's pretty complete. So in terms of background, it's a really mixed bag for me within Forces of Nature. I think it's kind of a split personality at a number of different levels. On one level, you've got a side that's very generic. It's this notion of, it's nature. We're here to protect nature. We're going to fight off anybody that tries to encroach on nature or harm nature. So it's conflict against man, orcs, whoever coming here to hinder, damage, destroy nature. That's a story that's been told 100 times over and can be easily translated into a bunch of different settings. But on the other side of that generic coin, we have this character for me, which is kind of what everything revolves around with nature, which is the Green Lady. Now, the Green Lady is, for all intents and purposes, Mother Nature. But they've done a good job of tying her back into Panathor lore. She is a Celestian, right? And she did survive the breakage of the Phanulian Mirror, and she was able to merge the two sides of Liliana. And I think that's the key part here. The fact she's got two sides makes her duplicitous. That is a metaphor for nature as a whole, right? So nature is trying to balance and maintain equilibrium in all things. And so, depending on what's coming at nature, she can become good, she can become evil. But the other piece of the background that I really like is there's also this other two-sided coin, which is on one side you've got all the feral beasts, the centaurs, the salamanders, naiads, eagles, wolves, bears, all these things. On the other side of the coin, you've got the elementals. So the water elementals, fire elementals, etc. And I like the fact that you've got both of those things. And, we'll talk a lot more about maybe some things that we would like to see, either in the army list or the background in the future. We're not going into a lot of depth on the background because there's a lot there to unpack, but I would highly recommend checking out the Kings of War wiki, and we will put a link to it in the show notes. And if you're into this stuff, I highly recommend checking it out.
Hi, I'm Luke. I've got a list for that Schaefer. I'm a co-host on the Best Firefight podcast, Controlled Fire, and you're listening to Countercharge.
Welcome back to Countercharge, and next let's get into the Army Review proper. Let's start with the alignment. They are neutral, which makes them great allies, but allies aren't a thing anymore, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Their army special rule is the Frenzied Otter, which is once per game when the unit rolls to damage. In melee, you may choose to reroll up to 3 dice that score a natural unmodified 1. The unit's Frenzied Otter is destroyed and cannot be used again for the remainder of the game. Now, I don't play Force of Nature, guys, but that seems a little underpowered. Or am I wrong?
We'll go with underpowered for 500.
Yeah.
At least for my 2 cents. There are definitely some better army rules. It's honestly, it's not even situationally worth taking, especially with command dice. You already get enough rerolls and use, or just taking an item that the odds of you taking Frenzied Otter or wanting to put anything that's going to take Frenzied Otter, it's slim to none. Just my 2 cents.
If I have some extra points left over, sometimes on centaurs, I think it's a good item to probably, or a good rule to put on them for that like 1 charge. But I'm normally not trying to work Frenzied Otter into the list. Normally I like Blade of Slashing, or I'll take another 5-point item over Frenzied Otter.
Well, next let's chat about command orders. I know they're brand new for Clash of Kings, and you guys may not have had a chance to play with them. But, in this list, there's 11 different heroes that can take extra command dice. In terms of command orders, the first one is by the Master's Will. It's a 4-cost command order, and it happens in the movement phase. This unit loses the Shambling special rule until the end of the turn, and they also have Unshakable Will for 4 points, also in the movement phase. This unit gains Regeneration 5+. Until the end of the turn. The command order may not be used on units that have Defense 6+. I mean, I've seen a lot of command orders. These seem pretty good, guys.
They're awesome. Yeah. Losing Shambling on greater air elementals is absolutely amazing. A 50x50, that's now, you have to take into consideration that it could go 20 inches and pivot. It's hard to play around Surge the way it is. And then when you give a command order like this, now your opponent has to kind of judge, is he just going to let this air elemental go 20 inches? Now, it can't be surged right away, but when it's behind your lines already, it's kind of annoying. And then Regen 5 on something like Defense 5 Salamanders, I found to be really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're both amazing. By the Master's Will is awesome for positioning, and I've got a bit of salt in the wound for Unshakable Will, but it is an amazing amazing rule. I just for some reason I can't roll a Regen 5 up to save my life, so I just kind of roll to roll with it.
Well, you should play Force of Abyss. You can have 4+ regen. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I tried that. It didn't go so well. It's just not in the cards unless it's got built-in regen, or I need something to, I have a Hydra or something that's going to go bananas. It's got, 20 wounds, and that'll be the time I'll regen all 20. So
when you don't want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited about that player that's going to use by the Master's Will to win the game on the bottom of 7 by taking off Shambling, and then this thing goes 20 or 16 inches and grabs a token that they didn't see coming. So, and how critical will that roll be for command dice in turn 6, right? Because you got to save them for 7. So it's going to make for some interesting games. But I mean, in terms of faction orders, these are some of the better ones.
Yeah, and you've got so many characters that can take command dice. It's one of those things where if you want to, pitch out around some extra points, you can load yourself up and get a lot of late game play.
One of the fun things about command dice that probably maybe not too many people know, but like during play testing, not all heroes were able to get command dice. Like now, like you said, what was it, 11? In the early development of that, there might have been only 3 characters, and they were trying to give it to characters that don't get picked. And I thought that was a great idea to try to incorporate those characters. Like if you want those commands, you have to take these lackluster characters, and then you could get the command dice. And then they just kind of opened it to everybody. And I'm like, I really liked when you had to take the worst character, or the ones that aren't always picked.
And also in the playtesting, there were characters that had command dice built in.
Yes. Yeah, already built in.
So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with 4th edition.
Yeah, I like to see where it goes.
Well, let's jump in and talk about the units. We'll start with infantry. We'll start with Naiad and Snares. They come in a troop regiment and horde, speed 5, melee 4, defense 3, 10, 12, 25 attacks, 1, 3, 4 unit strength, 9, 11, 13, 15, 20, 22 nerve. And their new amended points are 80 points for the troop, 125 points for the regiment, and 210 points for the horde. And they have Ensnare, Pathfinder, and Regen 4+. So, Bryce, you just need to play Ensnare hordes. You're fine.
Well, if I wanted to feed into Trident Realms, that's perfect, right?
Is this a unit you guys play? I know I've seen a lot of them on the table.
For Forces of Nature, no.
If they come in, it's normally I'm taking one horde with Hammer and Measured Force, sit them in a forest, and like sit on tokens and let people come to you. That's pretty much how I play with them. But I think I've only ever used a horde one time.
Yeah, the thing with the ensnarers, that it's a blessing and a curse, right? They're with Forces of Nature, I guess, in general, but then you get into the specifics, even opening with like ensnarers, heart piercers, and things of that nature. They're great with Forces of Nature as a feeder point if you wanted to go into Trident Realms. But with Forces of Nature, they do their job, right? A horde in the woods with an item, they're going to have that regen, they're going to have ensnare, just like most Forces of Nature stuff. They've got the Pathfinder, so they're definitely accessible and useful, right? Holding to objectives and all this stuff, but they still just feel a bit odd, right? You're not in that earth, wind, and fire. You're like in a puddle of water over in the corner. They're good for what they are. They just don't synergize as well with the rest of the army, I think.
Well, next we got heavy infantry. We have Salamander Primes. They again come as a troop, regiment, and horde, 1, 3, 4 unit strength, 10, 12, 25 attacks, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 21, 23. And their points have been amended. So the troop is still 90, the regiment's now 130, and the horde is 215. And they can take the Frenzied Otter rule for 5 points. They come with Crushing Strength 1. You can exchange your shields and get an extra Crushing, which would bump it to Crushing Strength 2. This is you have played with, Alan, right?
Yes, this is one that I've been playing with. I like to keep them at Defense 5 with the Crushing 1. I don't put items on this unit. If I do, this is actually one that doesn't have Pathfinder, so I might put like Sir Jesse's boots on them. But yeah, these are ones that are just pretty much they're trying to take the hit. Let them come into me, and then try to get my surging units into position. But yeah, it's just your good old Defense 5 block. Not going to put out a ton of damage, but it could take a hit, and that's what I like about them, especially the horde. And if you're playing with the command dice, I think this is a great unit to spend the regen on. If you could roll a good regen roll.
I was about to say that sounds like a really great target for that.
I haven't seen a lot of Force of Nature players playing Salamanders, but with the command orders that you have now, putting regen 5+ on a horde of defense 5, with the big nerve and stuff, that might be a solid way to go.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, before I didn't really, they're one of those other units that seems like it could fit somewhere else. Not bad, good tie-in unit, but man, with the command orders and them having access to regen,
yeah,
that's kind of a terrifying double objective backfield block. And I mean, you don't want to get close enough to them, right? Even hitting on 4s, Crush 1 flat is not bad with 25 attacks.
Right. I was running 2 hordes of them. Yeah, 2 hordes of Salamander Primes. Yeah.
So one with Brute Strength and one with Sharpness? No artifacts.
No artifacts. Just keep them cheap, and then they have to send a lot in to give them one shot pop. So normally a lot of times they get hung up on them, and then move into position with your elementals.
215 now for the horde. That seems like a steal.
Pretty cheap. That's what I like about it. I mean, they're bigger, obviously, base size wise, but like it reminds me a lot of water elementals, which I used to use when they had the command ability. Don't have Strider, but
what's an elemental equivalent to that? That's about because all the elemental hordes are about that same price, right? They're a little bit more expensive, I think. But
yeah, they're more expensive, but you're getting the higher nerve, which I like. But it did remind me a lot of my water elementals, except you had that big frontage and you can't surge, But you're also getting unit strength 4 too. So
yeah, that's the unit strength 4 is pretty massive, and it's a lot of flexibility. It's kind of intriguing now with the command dice relooking at all this stuff. Like, oh, that would actually work.
Alan, I mean, this is kind of your center of your army potentially. Then you've got the faster elements to kind of run the flanks or fly over top.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Well, next we've got ranged infantry, which is everybody's favorite Naiad Heart Piercers. They come in troop and regiments in 1 and 2 unit strength, 8 and 10 attacks, 9, 11, 13, 15 nerve, and their points are now 115 for the troop and 155 for the regiment. So they got a little cheaper by 5 points. They also have Regen 4+, and they have harpoon guns with an 18-inch range, piercing 1, steady aim, and they also can take Frenzied Otter for 5+, but Frenzied Otter only works in melee, right?
Yes.
Yep.
You're really probably never going to take this. I would say, guys, we used to see these guys all the time in Forces of Nature. You know, a couple units to just soften stuff up. Is that like, oh, that's 2022, Rob? That's not, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. They had their day in the sun. In my opinion, I moved away from them personally.
Yeah, I mean, I ran 2 regiments for a while, and I thought that when I was dealing with some of the water elementals and earth elementals as another kind of anchor point, they were really good to pepper things in, especially in an MSU style Forces of Nature list. They worked really well, but in today's era, I just don't see them holding water. That also could be because I can't roll a regen roll to save my life.
Well, the 18-inch range, right, is not as good as some of the other shooting out there. These guys do have the Regen 4+, but they are Defense 3. They're only 13, 15 nerve. It's not impossible to knock them out pretty quickly. So, I mean, just generally speaking, are you guys taking ranged, or you're more of a melee focus?
With Forces of Nature, I like taking a little bit.
Yeah, as much as I love range, I stepped away from using range in my Forces of Nature. I actually have very little, except the Solar Staff every once in a while, because all my other armies are so focused on shooting that Forces of Nature I'm more focused on Surge. So I moved away from the Heart Piercers a long time ago.
And the next heavy infantry we have is Hunters of the Wild, speed 5, melee 3+, defense 5, troop in a regiment, 1 and 3 unit strength, 12 and 15 attacks, 10, 12, 14, 16 nerve, and 90 and 140 points. They come with Pathfinder, Scout, and have the Verdant special rules. So, Alan, these are on your radar, right?
Yes, these are on my radar for a certain list, though. This is when we were talking about Capota, however you say your name. I like them, but they don't put out a lot of damage. But when they have their defense 5 and Phalanx when she's in the list or he's in the list, and I really like that. So once again, this is kind of a roadblock unit that I want to use.
And 140 points is not terribly expensive for a regiment.
It's not, and it's I believe 15 attacks, hitting on 3s. But the problem is, they lack the, thunderous or crushing, so they're not putting out that damage. They're hitting, but you're trying to get those wounds through. And now once again, you have normally in the list that we were talking about, you have Wilt Daddy, so they get vicious in that scouting list, which is fun. So, and those like little base sizes are not too little, but you normally get those 50s and angle them a certain way and limit charges. So a lot of things aren't just going to run up and bust through them. So I like the defense 5 Phalanx, and then you have weakness 2. These guys are on my radar. We're going to try to fit them in and see what we can do with them.
I'm trying to think back to a list that I have played that didn't have 2 regiments.
Yeah, that's what I'm starting with, 2 regiments.
I mean, I'm talking like all the way back to like my original dojo, and I've always put 2 regiments in. And I was recently alerted to the viability of the troops. I just had never really considered the troops, but I found that Hunters right. I was a Wood Elf player, back in the 40s. So it was an automatic. I mean, I've got 200 Dryads in a box behind me. So I had an entire wood-themed wood list. And I was like, oh, man, what could I use these for? I saw the Verdant keyword and the Hunters of the Wild. They were just the perfect fit. And they're so cheap at 140 for the unit strength 3. I find that I usually I build my list. I get to the finishing 400 points or so, and I'm like, I could take one one of these and have a weird number of points left over. Or I can take 2 of these, and Hunters of the Wild just always seem to squeak in. If I've got the spare points, this is before command orders, but I put Hammer Measured Force on one of them. Usually I didn't need that much punching power, but the 15 attacks, I'd set one of them, scout one of them on a hill, wait for the Thunderous, and then I'd have one kind of as a light anchor, wait for somebody to get close, hit, and then surge. They're kind of bread and butter for me, but kind of crazy. You look at their stat line, and I just found a list that's got 3 regiments, one with the Hammer Measured Force. You look at it, and you're just like, they're not anything crazy. A 14-16 defense 5 that 50. It's got 15 attacks, but no crush, no thunder, but it hits on 3s. 140 points. That's like Kingdoms of Men bargain basement pricing, and then you start getting into all the Kapoka and everything else, and
giving them Vicious and Phalanx would be awesome. Yeah,
and that's again before now being able to use the regen on them piques my interest. I'm sure I'll spend it and heal 1 out of 10 wounds or something.
Well, next let's get into cavalry, and everybody loves centaurs, and we'll start with the Centaur Bray Striders. They are speed 8, melee 3, defense 4, 134 unit strength, 612, 24 attacks, 11, 13, 14, 16, and 21, 23 nerve for the horde. Points are 105, 160, and 270. They are crushing strength 1, thunder charge 1, which I think that's a winning cavalry formation right there. Whenever you get the crushing 1, that's key. And then they've got Pathfinder, and you can take the Frenzied Otter. So, we all know the guys down in Texas, right? Jeff Radigan was a big fan, right? Didn't he have 2 hordes of these guys, which unlocked all the Scorchwings before they made Scorchwings go up in price, right? So, these are a solid unit to unlock with.
I agree.
They're my other alternate for the Hunters of the Wild. If I've got a little bit more flex points, because I'm hitting that 14, 16 nerve point, they're 160 points, you said?
Yeah, they're 160 points, so they're 20 points more than the Hunters of the Wild.
You get that extra speed, crush, thunder. Yeah, it all comes out in the wash, right? But they're quick enough to be able, it compensates for them not having scout.
Yeah, I love them.
Plus, a cool unit, right? Just centaurs. Whether it's you're thinking of like Narnia, there's like so many centaurs in pop culture,
Classic
right?
fantasy.
That's what I always think about Narnia, like the big battle from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where they're coming down and they're just like double swords, whack whack.
Yeah, I love how cheap they are.
Yeah, 270 for a horde is not that bad. I guess they're the one rub on them is that they're defense 4, right? Because they're unarmored cavalry, basically.
Right. Regiments. I think regiments are the key with this unit here. 270 is getting up there, but for how cheap and fast the regiments are.
When I dealt with the 2 regiments, I don't even think. I guess the herd, the horde option was it. I don't remember if it was there. I just never looked at it.
I don't think they had a horde option.
Yeah, so it was just regiments were solid. The hordes, I get. Radigan used them for his unlocks, and especially in a list like that where you've got so much speed, peppering shots. The last thing you want when you finally make it through all the flaming birds is to get run over by, non-armored heavy cav and a huge horde of them at a budget price. So, nobody cares about defense 4 if you're not targeting them.
Well, let's get into the other version of Centaurs. Centaur Bray Hunters, melee 4, but now they're range 4, used to be range 5. They're still defense 3. Trooper regiment, and their attacks went up to 7 and 14 for the troop in the regiment, and they're 11, 13, and 14, 16, but those benefits come at a cost, so now they're 120 or 180. So what is that, 15 points more on each regiment?
Yeah.
And now you can take Frenzied Otter, which is great, and they have Nimble, Pathfinder, Thunderous Charge 1, and then they have an 18-inch range with steady aim. So are these of use to you guys?
In this army, I don't play a lot of shooting, but I love units like this, though. That Nimble, like Silver Breeze Cav, I used to play them all the time in my list. They just don't fit what I'm doing in Forces of Nature, so I don't have experience with this unit, but I like, now that they're hitting on 4s, I like that they have Nimble. They have Pathfinder, I'm sure, because everything has Pathfinder, right? Yeah. They could run to where they want to get to. So in theory, I like the unit, but it won't see play in my Forces of Nature style list.
I've tinkered with the regiments of these in a couple variants on some of my Forces of Nature list, and I actually was messing around with them before they got the improvement to their range and attack value, and I actually found them to be worthwhile. 180 points now is a bit steep, but you'll never use Frenzied Otter with them, so you're not going to take it, right? I shouldn't say you'll never. One of the things I like about them, I like the versatility, right? Before when they were range 5, you're taking them for the plink shots, right? You got the steady aim, nimble, so you're dancing around. And one of the big things with Forces of Nature is positioning, right? You're positioning and utilizing terrain. You've got great access to surge. You've got good access to blocks of infantry if you want to go that route. But them being able to run up, nimble around, and just pepper shots is amazing. And if someone does put anything of merit into them, because they are still a 14-16, right, for a regiment, it opens up so much more for flanks and rears with surge. It's deadly. And you can't really ignore them because, okay, yeah, I mean, it's just the Thunder 1, but Thunder 1, 28 attacks in the flank, yeah, hitting on 4s, but that's a lot. That's a lot to be able to shift where you don't have to put as much in there. But I don't know, 180 points, I think it's probably right for what they're getting. But when they were 165, I really enjoyed them. So I might look at them at 180, but they're definitely versatile enough to use just with cover because of the defense.
They're Din Scout Scorchwings, right? Like they're exactly like Scorchwings, except for they're not speed 10, right? They have the same amount of attacks. They have Thunder Charge. I guess they hit on 4s instead of 3s, right? Because Scorchwings in melee hit on 3s, but they both shoot on 4s. But a horde of Scorchwings is going to cost you 215, and these are 180 now. So, that's 35 points.
I thought the point adjustment was fair.
Well, considering what you're getting, going to hitting on 4s seems like
it's like a brew of sharpness on every single unit for 15 points, for shooting.
Well, let's get into swarms. Nobody plays woodland critters.
No, can't say I have. If I'm using them for anything, it's chaff. Well, Bryce is like, hold on. This is the best unit in the game.
I have used them in one list. I've used them in one list, and I mean they did what I expected them to do. But it was one of those things where if you're at the point where you're considering woodland critters, you just need to shave something else off. And for me, I'd be like, I'm going to go to Hunters of the Wild. the one time, like I said, it was. I don't know. Maybe if they had Ensnare.
Did you play him as a horde?
Okay,
you're not that reckless.
I tried, and I was sitting there tinkering around with it, and I was like, no, didn't work. The regiment was hard enough. When I looked at the horde, I was like, oh man, 24 attacks kind of like popped out off at the page, and I was like, 24 of those attacks. All right, yeah. No, we're good. I think if someone was to use them, like maybe if they were, I don't know, 65 points or something, they'd be, we're talking like rats cheap. Because I mean, rat would be a woodland critter, right? I mean, you could use it as another crossover if you wanted to start a vermin army,
or maybe you want to make a South Park themed army. This would be this would be the unit, right?
Yes, it would be.
That would be perfect. Just put a bunch of kinnies in the middle, a bunch of rats going over. It'll be perfect.
In this army, sometimes you find yourself that you can't fit in like the Pegasus as a chaff, which is a great piece of chaff, and then that's possibly where the regiment of the woodland critters could come in as that chaff piece. But that's pretty much the only thing I see them being used in this army for.
Yeah, if somebody uses them to great effect, I want to see that list.
It's funny because they have some interesting rules, right? Like they have Nimble, Pathfinder, Vicious. In melee, they have fly, but they're only speed 6. This should be a challenge for Dustin Howard to figure this out.
You know what would make them kind of cool, thinking about it, is if they had something like the Crocodile Wrangler through the legs.
Yeah.
To where they could run through, because they already fly, right? But they just can't see anything.
Or give them the Tormentor rule, where you could see over stuff to charge, right?
The Leaper.
Something like that would fit really well. I mean, it's not like they're going to be game breaking in any way, shape, or form, but you might actually see some use if you didn't have to position your whole army around, a herd of chipmunks.
Squirrel army.
There we go. The Brian Jake's Redwall Army.
Yeah.
Here we go. All in.
Well, we'll get into the large infantry next, and obviously this is where all the elementals live, and they're very, very similar. So we'll try to kind of group them together and maybe point out the differences, but obviously we got Forest Shamblers, which are speed 6, melee 4, and defense 5. They come in a regiment and a horde, 2-3 unit strength, 9-18 attacks, dash 14, dash 17, 120, and 200. These are crushing strength 1, Pathfinder, Scout, and Shambling. And I know, Alan, with your potential list, Forest Shamblers could play a role because they have the Scout special rule, right? So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
fit in. They also have the verdant keyword, so
Yep.
fits in with make them phalanx too. So, are you rocking these guys?
In that list, it's just one horde of them. Just because this is where I wanted to try out the Hunters of the Wild. They are the cheaper out of all the elementals, but they also hitting on 4s, crushing 1. They're not putting out a ton of wounds, so they need the help from the tree herders. But it's nice when they have vicious. So this is all theory that hopefully Wilt Daddy be standing right behind him or off to the side, and we'll give that support. They'll have enough to take a hit, and then you could work the air elemental shambling into that.
Are you a fan of this unit, Bryce?
Yeah, I like them. They're especially in a Capoca list. They're pretty solid. They're good anchor points. They're they're not fire elementals, but they're like the nice sandwich in between everything, right? Like you get the water elemental defense, but they feed into the wood themed idea. They're not doing a crazy amount of damage, but with all the other auras and buffs and healing and everything, they work pretty well. And if I remember correctly, the Forest Shamblers, right? So they get the Scout, but they're the only tree that also has the elemental keyword. So they're a great target for Ring of Harmony, double casting. It doesn't impinge you the same way that the rest of the verdant items do, right? So it's just them, and I think the Gladewalker Druid have both the elemental and verdant keyword, just as a random little bit. So like when I built my wood themed Capoca list, once I realized like, oh wow, Ring of Harmony, I can really get some good use out of surge play with them because they are elementals too. So you can use both stacks. Are they anything to write home about past that? No, they're a mediocre tree elemental, but they're cool. There's a lot of miniature variants for that too.
Yeah, and as a Wood Elf player, I'm sure you've got freaking right up the wazoo.
I do. I have enough for 8 hordes of them.
Yeah, they're a bit like the discount elemental too, right? They're all going to be 10 points more for the regiment and 20 points for the horde, because they're going to give you something a little bit more than just what you're getting with the Forest Shamblers. And let's get to fire elementals, because nothing says fire like wood, right? So, but the fire elementals, the difference between them and the Shamblers, 10 points more for the regiment and 20 points more for the horde, but their stat line is exactly the same, but they are crushing strength 2, and they're also still Pathfinder, Shambling, and Vicious Melee.
I think this is one unit that really benefits from something like the Brew of Sharpness. You slap the Brew of Sharpness on, now hitting on 3s with that Vicious and Crushing 2, they end up putting a good amount of wounds out onto people. And even if you don't have the Brew of Sharpness, if you get that good 4 roll and Crushing 2, if you have a Bane Chan in the army, you're putting wounds onto your opponent for sure with this unit.
What say you, Bryce? Are you a fan of the fire elementals?
Yeah, they're solid. I do agree. The sharpness makes them dangerous. They start getting a little bit too rich for my blood at that point. But that's the that's like the home run stretch. You get with sharpness, right? You're getting the air elemental quality with fire elemental damage output, and the inbuilt vicious. They can almost stand on their own. It's one of those units that nobody wants to hit and not kill, because if you can, especially the surge army, right? If and now with the command point use, being able to just launch, if you need to really reposition them, right? Everybody plans on you moving 6 and pivoting and doing some positional surge, but now being able to throw them forward aggressively if needed is kind of amazing. And they to tie into Forest Shamblers, they actually work really well with regiments of Forest Shamblers, because Regiment of Forest Shamblers is appropriately the budget price we were talking about, and it allows the fire elementals to do better positioning. They do the Lord's work.
Then next we've got the air elementals, which the big difference between them and Shamblers are they hit on 3s. They're only defense 4, but they are speed 10. But the rest of their stats are the same, but they do have the point increase of 130 a regiment and 220 for the horde. And they're fly, nimble, pathfinder, and shambling. And, maybe at this point we should probably talk about the formation, right?
Yeah.
Formation is Nature's Wrath, and it is 2 hordes of air elementals, and those cost 10 points each for the formation. And you also have 1 greater air elemental for 20 points. All units in the formation gain the keywords Water, Bound, and the Regeneration 5+ special rule. The greater air elemental gains the Aura Brutal and Airborne and Water Bound only special rule. 40 points. If you're taking air elementals, you're probably taking the formation?
I have.
Yeah. Other than the greater elemental, I'd throw in every now and then just because he's a wily little cat. But yeah, the formation's the way to go. Even though, again, me and Regen are like kissing cousins or something. The rest of the concept is amazing, and then the brutal is pushing stuff over in combats. That one action, especially when you stack it with Cloak of Death from Wiltfather, it becomes just 2-point swings in combats. That's amazing. They do almost always need items, at least in my experience. But elementals are at that like sweet spot where you can throw some stuff on them and sleep at night.
Well, and now that you have the ability to remove shambling, it opens up some uses for these guys because they are speed 10 nimble.
Yeah. You don't even have to be surgical. Like at that point, you're just creating an aura of stay the heck away from me. The one thing, and Alan, I don't know if you've seen it or not, or experienced or not playing. One thing I've not really considered with air elementals and the command point use is usually I kind of block up my forces of nature. I make my happy brick and do brick stuff with my friends and wait for a surge. But I would almost be tempted to maybe stretch out a little bit with the air elementals just to use, because you're not what else are you going to use your command points on turn 1 for?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would definitely be wily to change up the deployment strat for that. That might be something I'll have to kick around, but I don't know if you've gotten a lot of play with that or not.
So this is one unit that I always used in every single list I've ever built, was this formation. I was a really big fan of this formation. You're correct with using or saying that they always need items. This is one unit that needs items all the time. My favorite go-to here was Hammer, Measure Force, and Brewer's Strength. Those were the 2 items that would go on them. And the way I normally would play it the old way was like either you have Forest Shamblers to scout up, and then you have the hordes go behind the Shamblers, or I find myself using Earth Elementals a lot to do my blocking and get the graders where they would need to be too. But now with the addition of the command dice, I have the idea, kind of what you were saying, but using like 1 greater air elemental on like a far flank, and maybe like where there's a building it could hide behind, and just sprint it up, turn it, and now they're looking down a flank. Normally you have the Gladewalker Druid with the 18-inch surge range, and that's another thing. We could probably get it up to 21 now with command dice, because you could, yeah. So if you have enough of dice, you get that surge up to 21. Like, I'll reach across the board and hit that thing. So it definitely opens up some new possibilities, which I was excited about. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I might have to dabble with my old masters list just to see how it compares with the command and the changes. I'm actually getting ready to rebuild it just because that popped up, and I just had the extra greater air elemental in there before, and yeah, that's a killer target. But the command stuff, you don't think about the extra 3 inches isn't a big deal until it's a big deal. And 3 inches going 20 miles an hour on a table is pretty awesome. But you got so many good built-in surgers. It makes like forest wardens tree herders all of a sudden being able to get that 15 inches, right? Plus their move and their, and the scout. I mean, you could really stack that well. It'd be expensive to set up, but I guess you're not going to be using it the same turn. So
Play around with it.
yeah, I know that's the next option. 137 lists.
Yep.
Well, should we jump into the water elementals? They're very similar to the Shamblers. The difference is they are speed 7, and they're still melee 4 and defense 5. And again, 130 and 220 for the Horde. They are crushing strength 1, regen 5+, shambling, and strider. So that's an interesting set of keywords. And they have the elemental and the waterbound special rules. So guys, have you guys been rocking water elementals at all?
In my old lists, that's where I'd use them a lot because they did benefit from the brutal aura. That was confirmed. So that was my go-to before the command dice for that regen 5. My whole idea was just to keep this army alive. So it played really well with the Green Lady who would heal them. You had Radiance of Life going out. So it was just a really good, if you didn't pop them in one go, you could put like 10 wounds on them and I'd get them back to full. And it was annoying. And people caught on to like, if you're going to go at them, you have to go at them and kill them in one go.
Yeah, I haven't tinkered with the water elementals in a while. I used to like them, and I actually used to run them with Wine of Elvenkind. Before the I guess the standard withdrawal changes with surge and stuff, you could back up, and it was enough to where if you did your 1-inch backup, sidestepped and pivoted, you could pivot 90 and surge right in the flank, and it was a sad day.
You're a bad man, Bryce. You're a bad man.
I know. Yeah. I mean, look, you play the game. But I mean, they have so many good rules. They just feel like one of those units that if you want to build around, you can make it work, right? The Strider comes into play. They're hitting like normal elementals. They got a little bit of everything. It's just, and they're just a smidge faster. So it's good, but I don't know. Since the changes to that, I haven't committed to them again. So that's one that, and they haven't piqued my interest either, which is upsetting.
I guess they're also available in the Green Lady list, right? Too, isn't that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old tie-in with the water elemental stuff, with the old Brotherhood list.
They're really good chaff. I will say that. The regiments, right? Because you get the unit strength 2. You still have the defense 5 with the built-in regen. Maybe not as much now because you've got the command points, but before that, having the regen 5 built in there, and the speed 7, right? So it was just enough positioning to where you could go up and kind of finagle, play Tetris in the back. And, if they died, they died. If they didn't, they're quick enough to be able to step out of the way. I don't know if I could will myself to spend 4 command points to regen on a 130 point unit.
Well, let's get into Alan's favorite elemental unit now, which is, and a lot of favorite thick chaff aficionados, the Earth Elementals. They are speed 5, so a little bit slower, and they hit on 4s, but they are defense 6. Again, come as a regiment in a horde. They are 15 and 18 nerfs, so a little bit better than the rest of the elementals. And they are also 130 and 220 for the horde. But they've got brutal, crushing strength 1, pathfinder, and shambling. I mean, the big thing here, guys, is the defense 6, right?
Yeah.
That is about as thick a chaff as you can have. 130 points, maybe a little bit past the chaff range, but you know what? I think it's still okay.
These guys provide a great screen for those, defense 4 units. You can't shoot my air, the horde of air elementals when they're behind this unit normally, or if you're tall enough or shooting at them, I'm getting some type of cover. And they also provide cover for the greater air elementals. So they were kind of my screen going in with my my list. Now they are slow though. That was the problem. They didn't have the scout ability like if I was using the Forest Shamblers to move up, and then you could just fly the the elementals behind them. So it did take a little bit longer to get into position, but that defense 6, they could take those shots, and then you had the Green Lady to heal those wounds off when they finally get a couple plink wounds, and it's frustrating. And I like them. They're great. They have brutal, so they could take into combat. But if the greater air elemental was out of the brutal aura, they could add brutal to a combat where I needed it. So I found a lot of good uses for the regiments of earth elementals.
You a fan, Bryce?
I don't know how you could not be a fan of earth elementals. I played with a horde of them pretty consistently. They're kind of no frills, all business. Although, you kind of made a pretty solid argument earlier with the salamanders and the regen. I get the defense 6 is amazing, but the higher nerve value of some of those other infantry is, you could work the woodland critters in, make your base size the exact same, right? I mean, that's like a budget. More unit strength. Come on, we got this. But no, they're reliable.
Yeah, unfortunately, they did get taken out in the new list for the primes, so we're going to try that out.
Oh, so the primes did actually wiggle them out.
I think I might have kept one regiment in, but yeah, I think they snuck in. I don't know, like you, I'm on 135 lists, depending on which one I'm looking at. But
exactly right. Like
in one of the lists, they definitely wiggled them out. I'm like, I don't think I need them anymore with these 2 big blocks. Defense 6 is a drug. Like it's like, yeah, come on and hit me. I don't care. Like I was just so reckless with them. I didn't care at all, and not that big frontage.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
defense 6 is a drug.
This is Countercharge, your podcast for all things Kings of War.
Well, let's get into the Greater Air Elemental. This was the unit of choice for the longest time. It got nerfed. It's been fixed a little bit. It is speed 10, melee 3, defense 4. It is user strength 1. It now has 9 attacks. They fixed it a little bit because they had nerfed it, down to 8?
Yeah.
Now it's back to 9. So it went from 10 to 8 to 9. It's dash 18 and 180 points. It's crushing strength 1, fly, nimble, pathfinder, shambling, thunder charge 1. And I think the cool thing is you can give it wind blast 6 for 25 points or lightning bolt 3 for 20 points. It's got the elemental and airbound special rule. And as we mentioned in the formation, you can give it brutal to airbound and waterbound only. These units, I mean, we used to see these guys in every Forces of Nature list, if I recall.
Oh yeah.
I took them before they got the wonky, well, not the wonky, the formation stuff, like the standalone ones. They were great at 10 attacks. I thought they were great at 8 attacks, and they're still great at 9 attacks. I don't think between 8 and 10, the variance is going to be that crazy. You're playing them for a flank or a rear. So, they're there to cripple or kill.
Yeah, I thought 8 was an over nerf a little bit, because now you got to figure nobody was going into the front with the greater air element. It's always a flank or a rear. So you got to figure you lost 4 attacks, when you're going into the flank. So I was like, 16 wasn't quite there, but I found 9. I've been playing now a couple games with the 9 attacks. It feels good. It feels like it's definitely worth taking them again, and it's not overkill. You could still duff the attacks and not break something, but it's I thought 8 was definitely too many.
Yeah, everybody worrying about him. I'm like, have you guys seen a bone dragon? It's like, you're over here complaining about this. Like, all right, yeah, you keep doing you. I get it, right? 75 mil versus 50. But
yeah, that was the argument. 75 versus 50. I'm like,
okay.
Don't worry.
Sure.
You just have to leave a couple millimeters hanging out. I'll hit that corner. Don't worry.
Yeah, I just need a window. You give me a window, I'm in.
But yeah, this was definitely every single one of my lists had these at the height of their power. And then when it dropped off, I kind of played a different army, one of my other armies. And now that they're back, I'm back,
God, you suckered me back in.
Yeah, they sucked me back in. The wind blast trick, I never really used that. The trick, you go up, you wind blast the unit back, and then you surge into the flank of, said unit. It was too much for me. You didn't need that, in my opinion.
I tried the lightning bolt a few times and I was like, this isn't enough. And I don't need to lightning bolt someone off. It's not supposed to be a, full storm front. But I thought that the wind blast was a good, I don't know, cinematic fit, right? You've got like this Disney-esque cartoon tornado character like blowing off. But it gives you a lot of play, and it makes them even better late game objective players, right? Because now they can do their fly 10, nimble, sit, and they're threatening. But being able to do that and blow somebody else off of an objective from, downtown is, that's some like Vegas era skills. That's hard to come by, right? So I don't know. It definitely had like the push pull aspect. I think is worthwhile, but I don't know. 25 points is still it's a lot. I mean, that's a whole item on one of your airline boards.
Yeah, so, that's what it came down, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of the things where if you are needing to trim some fat, it's gone, right? Mm-hmm. But if you've already kind of outfitted everything else, and you're balancing between woodland critters and and old Toot Toot over there, you're going for the wind blast. But it's pretty solid for objective play, and that's one thing that I think Forces of Nature, has. I don't want to say an uphill battle, but usually tend to be elite armies. So being able to shift, I can't tell you how many times I've watched, Jeff O'Neill goblin wind blast somebody off of an objective with 8 billion units. It's like, oh, look, whoosh. So having it on a giant threatening tornado demon thing versus, a little Grimblet with a hat is pretty solid.
That is one of the greatest feelings, though, is like when it's turn 6 and you wind blast somebody off a token that they forgot about. It's like, oh, I won the game. That is just a great feeling.
Now you can add 3 inches on it.
Yep. Yes, you can.
So it's like, or give yourself an extra dice for it. So
yeah,
it's definitely something to play around with. If you've never used it, I think anybody that's going to use a surge army to get into a surge army. I think there's I don't want to say a skill cap, but to really get Surge down to an art form, the more you are manipulating models on the table, the better you're going to get with it. And when you are already flexible with your movement and positioning, being able to then skew your opponent's positioning is, you're playing, 3D or whatever, 4D chess, whatever Star Trek era, 6-tiered thing. It gets to a different level, and it's great to tinker with, even if it doesn't end up making it into like the, oh my goodness, I'm going to crush face masters list. It's worth playing several games with.
So now let's go into everybody's favorite, the large cavalry. Specifically, everybody's favorite, Scorchwings. Used to be more favorite. Now they're just sort of, they're okay. I see them more in Salamander armies than I do in Forces of Nature now. Scorchwings obviously are the ubiquitous boogeyman from a previous version. They are speed 10, melee 3, range 4, defense 4, regiment and a horde, 2 unit strength, 3 unit strength, 17, 14 attacks, 11, 13, 14, 16 nerve, and 120 and 200 were the points before the change. Now they're 130 points and 215 points. They have Fly, Nimble, Pathfinder, Thunder Charge 1. They have Fire Sparks, which is an 18-inch range, steady aim, shooting attack. They're height 4. There's just a lot to like about these guys, right? They have enough attacks to be dangerous, either in melee or in shooting. They have the range and the nimble to just get where they need to be. They have Pathfinder, so if you want to charge into something that's in the woods, great. They've got Pathfinder and Thunder Charge 1, and they hit on 3s. They're awesome. The only thing now is they're more expensive. I think it went 15 points more on the Horde and 10 points more on the Regiment. Scorchwings in the past, were you guys big fans in using them in your Forces of Nature list? And now with the cost increase, are they passe?
So I was pre-bandwagon. Controversial opinion, right? And the folks that have played against Radigan's version of Scorchwings, I didn't think it was that hard of a list. It was really skewed, but when I played against it being piloted by other people, it was not hard to pick apart. Scorchwing wise, we were talking about the Centaur hunters earlier, and I made the comparison, or Rob, you made the comparison, and I just said, oh yeah, they're very similar, right? They're dual purpose, and just a little slower. But the difference, I think, is that the base size for Scorchwings is amazing, but I could never see myself running hordes of them. I think they're perfect in regiments, even with the upgraded cost or with the increased cost. I think regiments is where it's at. You do get all the multi-purpose for the height 4. They're good enough in melee to where if you get a flank, someone's in trouble. They fill the same purpose as the Centaurs, where because they're fly, nimble, or the Centaurs aren't fly, but you get what I'm saying. They're flying. They're like a Ford Mustang going off Dukes of Hazzard. They're threatening, and they're there enough to open your opponent up to where you can surge in and do the business. What I had an issue with the hordes was, man, that's a big footprint. Even fly, it's a big footprint, and anytime you have something that's just on this giant block of MDF, and all it takes is somebody to look at it the wrong way, and you're grounded, and you're not moving anywhere. Then, so no nimble, no fly. You lost your thunderous. Yeah, you're still hitting on 3s, but it is what it is. Whereas the horde block got in my elemental units way. It was too much. It made too many gaps. Whereas the regiments for me were the money. And I think even Radigan, when he was playing his 8 billion horde list with some more hordes in the back of the ponies, it's hard to get all those shots on target. 18 inches is a lot, right? But height 4, you're starting to block yourself. You start to get cover. You get in some weird predicaments. It's hard to get out of them. So
150 millimeters is a wide base.
It is. It's a great base for holding objectives and acting. Like I used them as an additional purpose too, right? Like the regiments, man, that's great chaff, because if they die, right? They're still fast enough, even grounded, where I could, sidestep and get them out of the way. Or who cares? Greater air elementals, right? Like I don't need you to be out of the way. I just need to be able to fit my 50 mil butt over here and surge into the flank or whatever this is. And they're just blocking you from going anywhere else. They talking about Pegasus being great. They're just a great general piece. Scorchwings, it's just a Pegasus on fire, right? The whole unit of them. So Rob over there with his oil paints, you just light it on fire. Afterwards, when it's melted down, it's a unit of woodland critters.
Yeah, the base sizes, I think, is what really kind of took me off of even trying it, because I was like, that's a lot of board space to take up and to get all those shots centered where I need it to be. And then, of course, I tried it with the Twilight Kin with the skiffs, because I was like, and that was even harder shooting from the side. I'm like, nah, this style is just not for me. So it wouldn't have worked out.
Do we think we're going to see them come back at some point? Because they've sort of fallen out of favor, and I don't see them, it's certainly in mass like I used to see.
I've still been tinkering around with 2 or 3 regiments, just because they fall into that same category, right? The 2 unit strength is nice when you get into a kind of an elite army where unit strength tends to be an issue. Having mobile mission playing unit strength is nice, and that's not dependent on anything. Right? Scorchwings, they don't need surge. Yeah, of course they need inspiring, but do they really? I mean, they just, fly 20 inches and hide behind a building sideways. Their base isn't honking. They can see over a hill. So that's kind of precarious in its own way, but it's really easy to give them cover because, you're playing forces of nature. Pretty much everything in its grandma is height 3. And then them being height 4, it's great. You've got perfect stacks for greater elementals to be able to hide behind them and then stack on a hill or stack on something else. And I don't know. I don't think you'll ever see them to Radigan special, but I think it would be doing them a disservice if you didn't expect to see a regiment here or there. I don't think people are going to be taking them in hordes the way they were, but they're still good in hordes.
Yeah, I think like skewed lists like that, they do very well and then they get a matchup that they're just not good against. So they're always at the top of the tournament, but they never really take the tournament because they run into that one list that's just a great counter. And I feel like in our area, dwarfs were a really big problem for a while. And that in the Scorchwing matchup, shooting into defense 6, even if you have a lot of shots, it wasn't doing a great amount. And then they shot you back at defense 4, and they were plucking your hordes off. So like that was like the rock, paper, scissors kind of thing going on for a while, and the dwarfs end winning it out. So I don't think we'll see it here in the Mid-Atlantic.
Short little suckers. I know. I don't think you'll see a bunch of hordes. One unit, and they're great.
Yeah, for sure. They're still great. They're fantastic, but I don't think to that level, like you said.
No, which is good, right? You don't want to see that. But
no, you don't want to see that.
The models are what really sold me on them too. They're one of my more preferred Mantic models. It's like well, especially now with the prevalence of phoenixes and ancient phoenixes and all that, it's just little baby phoenixes. You want to do like a little fluff bunny, whatever, and get some crazy chocobos on fire and, put some flying Scorchwings and big phoenixes, and there you go.
Well, the other large cavalry that they have is the Riverborn Naiad Worm Riders, which are speed 7, melee 3, defense 4. Regiment or Horde, 2-3 unit strength, 9-18 attacks, 12-14, 15-17, 140 and 235 points. They come with Crushing Strength 1, Thunderous Charge 2, just like the Rhinosaurs, but they have Pathfinder and Regen 4+. And they have the Naga and the Naiad keywords. So you guys rock these guys at all?
Unfortunately, I've never actually ran this unit before. I know they used to be like a good unit to take Blood of the Old Kings, the old version of it, where you actually had to take wounds. But I just never ran them. How about you, Bryce?
So this is one of the units I've looked at on paper, but I've never played. I've seen people play them really to great effect. Usually Blood of the Old King, right? When you did take, just because of the regen, stat line wise, they're actually a pretty good unit.
Right, they look great.
They fall into that one weird thing where, okay, yeah, they have 18 attacks. The nerve is good. The price is good. Hitting on 3s is good. The crush and thunder is great. And the regen's an extra bonus, but they would always compete, even though the stat lines aren't really the same. They'd always compete with like air elementals or water elementals for me.
Yep.
Right. Like the speed 7s, it's fast enough to be able to do something, but it's speed 7's never going to be faster than Surge.
Right.
It's not going to be as flexible as Surge. And the big thing with them, right? They do a lot of damage output, but they're not nimble.
Yeah.
So they're on a large cav footprint, right? That you get into that same nasty business in an army that you are really focused on positioning. Nobody, like, you have enough baseball bats in the back. You don't really need another one. Although the regen would have been great before, but now you can stick regen on everything except for earth elementals. So they probably need some love to say, unless you're doing a crossover thing, right? This is one of those going into Trident Realms. Sign me up for another, right? I play worms in my Trident Realms, but I don't know. In Forces of Nature, they don't really. It's a key that doesn't fit a door in the army.
I mean, the height 4 is nice, right? You can be on the other side of the hill and charge over them, but if you want that, then you can just take Scorchwings if that's what you really want.
Exactly, right? And the only thing, and maybe there's something to be said about a horde of Scorchwings now, because you can, give them regen.
I never thought about that. But that's pretty filthy.
I didn't either until just now. I was like, well, I guess you could take. But now, being able to bolster them and give regen, you can run them on their own. Still, it's a great argument for one horde. I still don't think it's worth taking more than that. But I don't know. I'd like to see somebody use them well, but correct me if I'm wrong. They just feel like a kind of a wicked redheaded stepchild in the list.
Yeah, there's too many other spots that are taken already that they're trying to fill that I feel air elemental, the horde of air elementals were doing better. Like that's the unit I'd probably replace my air elementals with if I wanted to try them out.
So what would you do to change them?
To change them, huh?
Well, because I'm sitting here, I was like, well, they don't have nimble, but really because of air elementals, you're taking the items air elementals with an item, they're barely more expensive. They're going to be in the formation, so they're going to have the regen. They're going to have the formations brutal, and they're surgeable, which I'll take surge over just a standard speed 7 every time. So how do you make Naiad Worm Riders worth taking in a Forces of Nature list?
If you would change them to Crushing 2, Thunder 1, that would entice me a little bit more. Because now I have a unit that I could sit and grind with a lot better. That Crushing 2 would mean a lot to me. And then you know, obviously you have to take a Thunder away. But just giving them Crushing 2, Thunder 1, I think would start to make me question putting them in over another unit.
I could see maybe regiments might be worthwhile.
Yeah.
But then the regiment's kind of the same thing, right? Because they're not nimble. It's a little bit more difficult to get them out of the way.
Yeah, it's at 150.
But, no, crush 2 Thunder 1 and then being able to grind with the regen. I mean, that'd be a...
Yeah, that definitely makes me, like, that would make me look at them. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that would be a game-breaking adjustment, right? Like, there's some premise there, because I mean they're already speed 7, right? Speed 7, not nimble. I mean that would. I
mean, you got to figure they're getting hit by Cav, like 1816. They're not winning that battle, so they kind of have to make it there first of all, and then when they get there, that's kind of a good trade. Because normally they're not going to. Normally, they don't get the charge off all the time. Not like your speed 10, like where the air elementals are getting in when I want them to get in. Like they have to either have chaff in front of them to block and then hit, or they have to take the hit first, and then you're losing that Thunder too. And that's what kind of makes
so then it's like a pillow fight,
right? Exactly.
Plus their defense 4 and waverable, and they don't have fury.
Yes,
right. So they're you're right. They're getting hit almost every time, and it somebody had some bad deviled eggs, and that gas is putting them on their butt. They're not going to be able to hit anything.
Right.
They'll regen. That's great. But that's a big footprint to be, traffic jammed in front of everything.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the next unit.
Well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Keith Conroy, right? He's a fan of this next unit. So the monsters, we'll get into the first one that we have here is the Beast of Nature, speed 7, melee 3+, 5+ defense. 1 unit strength, 5 attacks, 15, 17 nerve, and 160 points. Comes with Crushing 2, nimble, pathfinder, and vicious. And for 15 points, you can gain the ranged attack Noxious Mist, which is a 12-inch attack, 12-inch range, 10 attacks, range 4, and steady aim. For 30 points, you can, which is I think the required one, is the upgrade with wings to increase speed to 10 and gaining fly. Or you can just increase the attacks to 7 from 5 for 15 points. It comes with Beast and Verdant. You could make this guy Phalanx.
Yeah, I used to do that just to be a dick. I used to take it with Capote.
I do that.
Oh, did you?
I do that 100%.
What? I'm like,
controversially, I'm about 50-50 between taking wings and not taking wings. Because you want to talk about being a dick. Give this dude 7 attacks, and he's not flying. So ensnare, so you're locking people in, and it's just a nimble 50 mil running away. Yes, please.
That's pretty fun. I always put wings though. I'm on the wing train. I always did that, but I did like taking it because people are like, "Wait, hold on, it's Verdant." I'm like, "Yeah, it is," and they're like, "Oh, really?" Like, yeah. So it was a fun little catch.
The nimble ground bound, because my thing is when I took wings, or when I take wings with them, I get Kingdoms of Men General on Wing Beast happy, where I'm like, pew, and I run off into the distance, except I'm like, oh, wait, I don't inspire myself. And I run off into the distance. So when I have them not flying, speed 7 with the nimble, with the rest of the army is just fast enough to be able to charge and get out of the way and hit the next thing behind them because they're height 5.
Yeah.
7 attacks is just enough to push something over or to hold it up. And having the ensnare to where I can, if I choose to, right, I can, or with the phalanx, sorry, not ensnare. With the phalanx, like you lock somebody in, they don't realize how resilient you are. And then you just turbo boost around like a happy snail and hit something else. And then you're surging into everybody's business. the wings, especially because, if you're taking one of these, you should probably be taking two.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get into two, that's 60 points.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, 3/4 of your woodland critters.
I always used to go 3 of them. I was running 3 of them around the board. Oh yeah, like one would be in the middle, 2 on the outside. It's like they were getting somewhere.
Have you ever used the noxious mist to any kind of effect?
No, that's when I have it. I did try it in early stages of my Forces of Nature, kind of when I was using the heart piercers. I had the noxious breath on them, and I would try to get and it was more. You're more like trying to go I was trying to go 10 inches, pivot, and get shots off. I'm like, why am I doing this when I could just fly into better positions? And I should have been using it more as like late game. This has 14 wounds on it. Sneak another wound in it, get a nerve check, get it off the board. And I wasn't. That was like more my early Kings of War thinking. And I was like, no,
I used it. I used it for like 2 games when I first started. Right, my first 2 times using when I was building lists. With the Beast of Nature. And I was doing kind of the same thing, except what I would do is instead of flying the 10 to try to get shots, I had this in my head where I was like, oh, I'm going to fly 20 and pivot, right? Try to get behind somebody's lines. And then I'm just going to be behind them and I'm just going to pepper them with this noxious mist. And the entire time, and then I'll be able to use my heart piercers and everything else and pressure and do this like combo platter. Wait, why am I standing behind them? Needing to take a tic tac, bad breath, when I could just be rear charging.
Yes, rear charging them.
I feel like I'm missing a giant step in my game, and then it just kind of went the way of the dodo bird. I think if it had shattering, it would be worth taking.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's the one. That's where I was trimming my fat. Like I wasn't taking that. Like after doing that and only moving 10, I'm like, I'm focusing way too much on the shots. You need to get behind the lines, charge the rear, get those 21 attacks, and just go to town on them. And when I started doing that, I started having a lot more success with my Forces of Nature play style.
Yeah, and the 2 Beasts of Nature are always in my Capoca lists.
Okay, yeah,
hands down, just because it's 15. I kind of look at it as 175 point. Everything in my Capoca list is chaff, right?
Yeah.
It's all dual purpose. It's all chaff. It's all hitters. It just depends on how it's hitting you and where it's hitting you. But using a Beast of Nature to block off a front because they're these little nimble 50 mils. It's like my diet greater air elemental.
That's who took. So the 2 Beasts of Nature got replaced now by 2 greater air elementals in the list that I sent to the chat here that we could share later on. But yeah, that's I used to have the Beast of Nature in there. Now that they took that spot.
That makes sense, but that's anti-Capoca.
I know.
It's controversial.
I know it is. It's controversial. It's that next level. I got to see if that works now.
Yeah, Beast of Nature, they're great. They're not great, for every list, but they're great.
But they are great.
Yeah. The while we're going into the next business, I'm going to see if I can pull up one of my Capoca lists just to prep myself.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, the next monster we have, we've already touched on the Greater Air, but let's touch on the Pegasus, which, speed 10, 3+ melee, 4+ defense, 3 attacks, 10, 12 nerve, 80 points, fly, nimble, pathfinder, and thunder charge 1. I mean, beast keyword. You guys rocking this chaff piece?
Unfortunately, I ran out of monster slots. That's the reason I couldn't fit. I'd always run out of monster slots, and I was like, I can't fit it in. So unfortunately, it wasn't making my list, and the only reason it wasn't was because of that not being able to fit into the list. But yeah, as far as chaff goes, utility piece, absolutely fantastic. It can fly to where it needs to block. It blocks a lot of line of sight. If it gets into flanks or even gets into rears, it's adding extra damage. I think it's a great utility piece, and I would take it if I could.
They're a steal for what they are, points wise, for what you're getting if you're able to use them for that. But we already have so many unit strength 1 monsters that like, I mean, I've taken it, right? I took it. It was in my master's list, but it ended up being my master's list because I wanted something else to have for that one turn of I need to block line of sight chaff that I didn't want to use my Scorch Wings or, to run off and grab an objective. And it just, it was, I didn't have enough points to do anything else. So I don't know. They're good. They're good. It doesn't fit into any real theme for forces of nature, I guess, unless you're going to do a beast list, or a beast style list, but there's something that's going to pop up. You're going to see one floating around every now and then.
Well, next let's chat about the Greater Water Elemental. It is speed 7, melee 4, defense 5, 9 attacks, 18 nerve, dash 18 nerve, 180 points, and crushing strength 2, regeneration 4+, shambling strider, and now it gets Radiance of Life for Naiads. So your Naiads have got the 4+ regen, and now you get an extra, wound back every turn. I don't know. That's the reason you would take it. But are you guys ever rocking the Greater Water Elemental?
We tried a UB list where it was like 3 Greater Water Elementals, a bunch of Water Elemental units, just to have a ton of regen, and it didn't work out. It's fun, but it didn't work out in the long run. The regen 4 is awesome on a defense 5 monster, but overall, I mean, I could see it getting used like maybe 1, but I don't think you're taking it for the Radiance of Life on Naiad. That's not happening.
No,
like you're taking it because you want
bait.
to. That's not even a great selling point. Like, I'm not,
no. I mean, if you're sold on, what? If the Worm Riders get Crush Tooth under 1,
yeah, okay, there we go, yeah,
right. Because then they're all speed 7. You could almost sell me on that,
yeah,
if they got that flop. But I used to run 1. It was kind of the same thing with it was the Earth, Wind, and Fire style list where, except I didn't take Earth, Wind, and Fire. I took Wind, Water, and Earth, I think. Or I took all 4 elementals, and that was the way I could fit water in after I removed the Horde. When the change came about, I was like, oh, well, I'll just take a greater. And it worked. It's just mediocre.
That's what I found it to be. If they gave the Radiance of Life to woodland critters, I'd probably take it. But
I'm telling you, like we're gonna shout to the heavens. I don't know. The Radiance of Life Naiads does just irk me. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, man, the regen on it's great, but
that was my big thing. That's what caught my eye, and that's why I wanted to try it. I really liked regen 4 on defense 5. I was like, ooh, that's fun. But it ended up crushing 2. Just it was good, but not enough. Sometimes like I just sit there grinding it out, and then I get flanked by something.
Well, you know what would be kind of cool is if it was able to, because I mean it already is benefiting Naiads. If it could take Frenzied Otter, just have like an otter in the water.
That'd be pretty fun.
Well, because it, hitting on 4s, right? Crush 2 is enough to where obviously you're at Sad Panda for 1s and 2s typically, right?
Right.
But you're looking for 3s and above for your average stuff. Well, if you were able to take an extra 5 points, it puts it up to 185. But usually you're probably only getting 1 pivotal turn out of a 50 mil surgible monster before it gets hit by something else. If you could get it into a flank, have 3 reroll 1s. I mean, I think that would be probably the best use of Frenzied Otter in this entire army, if you could put it on that.
That we're going to lead into this though, but like that's the fire elementals. Like that's what makes the fire elemental so great. I think this elemental is being outshined by obviously the greater air elemental, and then the fire elemental, who's actually very, very good as well. So like this one's kind of being left in the dust. This is more of like a defensive piece. I feel like you want this to hold up somewhere and just hold the unit in place while something else is trying to make its way over.
Oh yeah, and the fire elemental is like better in literally every way. I mean, and it's cheaper.
Yes, exactly. So like that's what I'm saying. It's like even with the Frenzy Honored, it's like I'll just take the one that's crushing 3 and vicious.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Let's jump into the aforementioned Greater Fire Elemental. He's speed 6, melee 3, defense 5, 8 attacks instead of 9 with the water, but dash 18, and he's 5 points less at 175 points. But he's got crushing strength 3, Pathfinder, shambling, and vicious melee.
And Fireball.
and Fireball,
he's
yeah.
got Fireball 8. But he's got like one last attack, but he hits on 3s with an extra pip of crushing.
Yeah.
And vicious. So like he's gonna do more damage, right?
This is the guy. This is the guy that takes somebody out behind the woodshed, right? Like the water elemental watches from the wood line, and he's just back there just whooping up on everybody. The naiads are hiding in the shadows because they want to be radianced or whatever, and the greater fire elemental is like, "Come get some."
The guy she told you not to worry about.
Exactly.
Like that's how
This
it
is
is.
this is the the supersized can of monster.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's man, they're solid. Although they're probably better in salamanders, right?
They work off the keyword more in salamanders, from what I remember. They work great in this list with Gladewalker Druid and heal backed up.
Well, next up we've got Titans, and the first up we've got the Greater Earth Elemental, which is speed 6, melee 4, 6 plus defense, 12 attacks, dash 19, 230 points, brutal, crushing strength 3, shambling strider. Keyword is elemental, earthbound, and obviously with all Titans now are unit strength 2. So this guy's solid. He's pricey, but he's solid.
Yeah, I mean that's again, right? It's that dual crossover. So I don't actually think the Greater Earth Elemental when it was unit strength 1 was pricey. Unit strength 2, I don't think it's pricey. I actually look at it as an in between. Like if I'm considering taking an Earth Elemental horde, I will look at taking a Greater Earth Elemental Titan instead. I lose the 1 unit strength, right? But I gain the nerve, and it's a perfect square. Higher crush. It's one of those things where if I'm using it, like defense 6 is a drug, but it's easier to fit the rest of my units around. Other than other monsters, pretty much anything else that's in engage with it is going to stick out. It's money for a combo charge or a nice, easy, surgible flank, whereas and it can see over everything. So
now I never got to play with I never played with the Titan, the Greater Earth Elemental, but in theory I always wanted to try the Gladewalker Druid, Ring of Harmony, and then try Celestial Restoration, and then have 2 of them and just like do mega heals on these defense 6 monsters. Like I thought that'd be a neat little trick that you could double cast it, re-roll your ones.
I have that list.
Do you have that list?
I have that list. I also took tree herders for good measure.
Nice.
Because then I was like, I've got all of the heal and all of the surge and all of the defense 6. Oh, these guys inspire. It's like, oh, look, everything's on a square. I really enjoy it. Where it suffered, and I took that pre-celestial post ring, and when I first started looking at it, it was before unit strength 2, and oh man, it was one of those things where you have so many points in so few unit strength. You were talking about like it's so hyper elite that it's very unforgiving.
Yeah,
you have one snake eyes, and you're gonna be like.
That's why I never really wanted to put it on the table because it was a little too elite. Like that ate up a lot of points. It was a fun gimmick. It was, like it was awesome, but I was like, the unit strength's very low. Like you said, one bad snake, so you're out of position. It just punishes you too much, and so I never. It was all a theory for me, so I never got to experience.
It's awesome, but it's like 12 unit strength for the army.
Yep.
You're like,
that it.
12 unit strength, 10 drops. I don't like where this is going.
How does it play on scenario? Horrible. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Do I get to place the objectives?
Yeah.
It's okay. Guess what shape I'm making?
Yeah.
Yeah, your opponent's like, huh?
Yeah.
All right. You've got a third the number of my units and half my unit strength. I'm going to put one in every corner and
Corner, right? Yeah.
smile.
While I'm trying to make a box with the
Yeah.
tokens.
one of those. I'm going to make a big box, right? The
Yep.
the full table, and you got like these slow dwarves like running
Yep.
away, like you're never going to catch me. But whatever you do catch is going to be turned into gravel. But I don't know. That'd be a blast. But I only played it once, and it was about what you'd expect. It was awesome designing, and you get all this like kitty joy. It's like
Yep.
Pinky and the Brain level contraption, and then you put it on the table, and I don't know, a centaur horde hits something and it's like evaporates, and then you hit it back, and you roll snake eyes, and you're like, this isn't going the way I wanted it to.
No, sir.
Well, next up, we've got the Hydra, which again is a Titan, so it's got unit strength 2 and speed 6, melee 4, defense 5+. He's got 5 attacks, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. 16, 18 nerve and 150 points. Crushing strength 2, Pathfinder and regeneration 5+. He's got the multiple heads rule in addition to the basic 5 attacks. The Hydra has a number of additional attacks equal to its current points in damage. Got the beast keyword. This guy is also height 6, which we shouldn't mention. He's pretty good, man. For 150 points, he's a little tank that can dish out. He gets better in combat the more you beat on him.
Yep.
And he's got regen.
And he's got regen, but you can't roll. But yeah, if you can roll regen 5+, this would be for you.
I have a lot of experience with Hydras, and I take 3 every time I take them. I take 3 of them in almost every herd list I play. I freaking love them, even though I can't roll regen to save my ass, like for anything. I bet in the last 4 2,500 UB games that I have played with 3 Hydras for the like current online tournament thing, out of all of those games, if I have regened 10 wounds off of all of them, I would be shocked.
That just means you get more attacks. That's all it means. You're good.
Look, here's the controversial take. We also didn't mention it for the greater Earth. Hitting on 4s, man. It's like sometimes I roll and I feel like I'm rolling D3s. But yeah, Hydras are amazing.
I have no experience. No experience with Hydras. I never actually ran them. I love that they're super cheap at 150, and I'd
16,
probably use
18.
them, yeah, 16, 18 as tanks. Like they could sit somewhere and block up, but I've never personally used them.
Especially with unit strength 2. Now, I mean, they're like point for point. You'd be pretty hard pressed to find. I mean, they're like perfect chaff.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hide everything behind them, right? Like, especially if you're taking 3 of them. There's not anything in the game you can't hide behind 3 Hydras side by side.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. Other than like legions of something, right? Like the stuff that you actually care to hide. Nobody's worried about hiding an Axe Legion.
Yeah.
But the like you can hide anything behind them. You could leave them. They're just good enough because they self-heal that if you were to leave them back on an objective, like what's going to get past the rest of your surging army and hit a Hydra that's 16, 18 in the woods that's going to actually threaten it with a good time. I mean, oh, look, I just absolutely smacked above my pay grade. The Hydra's like, oh, look, I have more heads.
Yeah, that'd be a fun model to paint up too. I always wanted to paint up a Hydra, so that maybe I will now.
So I've got 3 of the Games Workshop Hydras.
Yeah.
And I just so they've got like alternate heads and alternate like doodads, whatever.
I remember them.
Tassels. So I built one that was just the regular Hydra, one that was like the Charybdis, and then I built one that had different heads. And I was like, oh, this will be perfect, right? So they're a little unique. And then after like my, 18th 3D printer, I was like, oh my goodness. Look on my mini factory. Look at the absolutely gorgeous Hydra models.
Yep.
That, I mean, I sit there and every day I look at it. I'm just like, man, I wish I could paint.
Yeah.
What if I could get what's in my head on that model? Just every time.
Yeah.
But
that's
you know
what
what? I'm happy chewing a crayon and spray painting in the yard and they're still gorgeous, but there's so many different options.
Yes.
And every style too, right? Like, the big thing with Forces of Nature is you can take that army into any other army.
Yeah.
Well, most other armies that you're going to take it into have probably got some kind of Titan. You want a water-based Hydra? Hey, look, Kraken, right? You want a fire-based Hydra? Oh, look, Fire Drake.
Yep.
Rockawus, whatever. I mean, you want to do like a hoity-toity whatever? Hey, look, Elf.
Yep.
Put
on so many levels.
Cup of tea on the bottom of the base or something. I mean, there's a version of a Hydra out there for it. Some kind of Hydra or dragon-esque thing. And what else are you going to confuse it with in an army of Forces of Nature? All right? I mean, your options are crazy multi-headed snake thing, reptile, versus big O pile O rock. There is no the miniature agnostic thing. I mean, hell, you could put a popcorn thing on there and sell it. Like, every time a kernel pops, another one pops, right? I mean, big old halfling cauldron of butter and just call it a day. My
AMC Hydra.
Exactly, right? Like, you get a ticket. I mean, you've got all the options, and they're awesome. They don't benefit from a lot of the Forces of Nature ambiance, but they're one of those bargain basement. They're in that same category with the Hunters of the Wild, right? If you don't need unlocks, if you have spare unlocks, like you're using all your monster stuff, then that's
right.
fine. But if you got some extra unlocks, usually when you're straddling that fence, 150 points isn't that bad.
It's kind of giving me Phoenix vibes, like the Phoenix now at unit strength 2 and so cheap, and being able to heal, shoot. Phoenix is better, but the Hydra kind of is giving me that now with the unit strength 2. I never really thought of it, so I might play around now with that idea.
They're a blast, and modeling, creativity wise, they're amazing. But that was probably one of the best, just fundamental broad strokes changes to Kings. Was Titans having unit strength 2.
And I agreed with that. I was pushing for that.
I was the happiest of happy campers, bar none. Especially like when I was playing Lone Wolf. When I was playing Lone Wolf, I didn't have Hydras or anything in that list, but Lone Wolf has got some kind of wonky missions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was told, right? I was like, oh yeah, there's going to be some wonky missions. So I go into it like, I just show up and I've got like a treadmill in my truck because I drove down there for work to drop a treadmill off at a military hospital. And my army is sitting in like a to-go tray. And we go to play the mission with the well. Rob, do you know that one?
They're poisoned and they give you like
poison well, right? So, and I can't remember who I was playing. But I think that was the only game that Lone Wolf that I lost. And that was the mission. And if the well was poisoned, everything, it was, like your 3 center objectives. And you could choose to poison a well, and your opponent would choose to poison a well. It was a secret, right? So you choose to poison these wells. Well, poison wells took 1 unit strength away from your units.
Oh.
Which is, I mean, it's a very creative, cool way to do it. When it's not creative? When you're playing Forces of Nature and you've got 2 Beasts of Nature, 2 Tree Herders, 2 Scorchwing regiments. So at the end of the game, I've got like 7 or 8 units on this, on the 1 center objective that's poisoned. And my opponent had 2. Because 2 of mine were trees, 2 of mine were Beast of Nature, 1 of them was a Greater Earth Elemental, and 1 of them was a Scorchwing unit. So I had 2 unit strength out of 6 units. And he had 2 like whatever unit, and they were like crutching along with bandages, whatever. But because one was 3 and they were both 3, they both went down to 2. So it was like 4 to 2 or something. I mean, it was insane. I'm sitting here like, I have 1,400 points around your like 300 points, and because the poison has poisoned my rock, I am a sad panda, right? Like I just sat there. He played it wonderfully, and the mission was very creative. But that was the one time I sat there and was like, unit strength 1 is not adequate. And then I was like, we've found a problem. Usually I'm like, oh, I can fly and grab all these objectives. Nope. And of course, we poisoned different wells. So only one of the 3 objectives was not, affecting your unit strength. That was a fun, crazy, wonky mission.
Well, next, let's get into the heroes section. We'll start with the Naiad Stalker. I don't think you guys are taking this guy.
No, I can't say I've ever taken the Naiad Stalker.
But I bet you're taking a Druid.
Oh, you bet.
We have the Druid. He's a level 1 spellcaster. He's speed 5, melee 5, 4+ defense, 1 attack, 10, 12, nerve, and 45 points now. Used to be 65. He has individual, inspiring, and Pathfinder. You can mount him on a steed and get him to speed 9. You can give him heal 2 for 10. You can give him Bane Chant 2 for 20. Lightning Bolt 2 for 10. Surge 4 for 10. Or Wind Blast for 15. But he has the Verdant Rule as well.
They do.
That's pretty tasty, right? And then he's an elemental. So, I mean, he's like your budget caster.
That's exactly what they are. They're budget casters, super cheap. This is where you could get a nice cheap Surge. Surge 4 for 10 points. That's a steal. Even Lightning Bolt 2 for 10 points. That's still a steal too. And considering the Boomstick now is 30 points, so you're paying 10 per for 1 Lightning Bolt in that case, and this you're paying 10 for 2. So I feel that's a little steal. But overall, these are definitely my Surge caddies. I'm popping them in with a Surge. Actually, I used to throw Bane Chant on them too, especially for the greater air elementals when they would hit a flank. The Thunder 1, Crushing 1's good, but against defense 5, they needed that little extra pop. So I would sneak in a Bane Chant and a Surge on my kit outs. And normally an item for them, Amulet of the Fireheart was always a good one, and Conjurer's Staff. That's what I was looking for with these guys, and you can't go wrong. Druids go with forces of nature like butter and bread, baby. Like, they're just great.
Talking about the baby Druid, let's talk about the big daddy Druid. Gladewalker Druid, so spellcaster 2, speed 5, melee 5, defense 4, 1 attack, 12, 14 nerve, and now 60 points because they've removed the heal. He's got individual, inspiring, Pathfinder, but the killer here is nature and balance. While within 6 inches of another friendly core elemental unit, this unit can reroll all to hit rolls of a natural unmodified 1 with Fireball, Blizzard, Heal, Hex, and Surge. Kind of makes him elite, which is pretty sweet. You can take Heal 4 for 30 points. You can take Fireball 8 for 25 points. Hex 3 for 15, Surge 8 for 30, and then Blizzard 2 for 20 points, or you can put him on a steed to make him go speed 9. But the killer here is the Ring of Harmony. Once per turn after casting a spell targeting a friendly core elemental unit, this unit may immediately target a different friendly core elemental unit with the same or different spell for 25 points. Does it feel like cheating when you play this guy?
Yeah, it does. Value caster. So you're always going to take it if you're running elementals, that's for sure. I mean, I could see where if you're not doing that style list, it does stay at home. But if you're running elementals, like, you got to take this Druid. It was fantastic getting 2 spells off. Right there, it's filling the role of 2 casters, getting to cast 2 spells every single turn. Now, I would always keep the heal on. I wouldn't just replace the Surge. But so it would be Surge and heal. Crown of the Wizard King was my go-to on this. Getting that extra range was so nice. Surge 18 is fantastic. I mean, you could just hit about anywhere on the board, hitting the greater air elementals. But yeah, and then you're elite on top of it. I can't remember what the point total was. I want to say it was expensive, but in my opinion, as far as vanilla casters, it was definitely the best caster in the game. And then not your named characters. There's probably some named characters that are better, but as far as vanilla casters go, you're getting your points worth and you're getting your money's worth out of this character.
And I guess when you say if you're not playing elementals, you don't need them. But if you're not playing elementals, why are you playing Forces of Nature?
Yeah, right. So like unless you're doing something off the wall or crazy, but like, yeah, if you have let's see, what would be good? Let's say like 3 elemental units in your army, you might as well take this character, for that Surge, just for the double Surge alone, Surge 8. And then that normally it's buy an elemental, so it's going to be elite. So 8 surge dice, and then you're getting to reroll your ones. It's normally making it in, and you're normally only need an inch anyway. Normally, like get up to the unit. Okay, I need an inch. Roll the 8 dice. But even like being like 3 to 4 inches away, this guy could just take care of it himself pretty reliably.
Yeah, he's popular, and he's in every Force of Nature list I've seen.
Yep.
So if you're out there and you don't like this guy, please let us know on the Facebook group. We would love to hear why you don't like this guy, because even though he's a little pricey when you kit him out, he's just like a perfect toolbox and gives you so much efficiency.
I mean, you got to break it down. Like I said, like casting twice in a turn, you almost cut that price in half. So let's just say it was 150. I mean, so it's like 75 points, 75 point. It's filling that role. It's getting to cast twice every single time, because normally your regular caster could only pick one spell, and this one's getting to break that rule, and that's great.
It's an amazing toolbox. Next up, we have the Salamander Veteran. With all the stuff you could choose, you're not playing this guy.
No, unless you're going heavy into the Salamanders and you want to give them elite, I don't think you're playing this guy. I personally never played him myself. The Guiding Flame is fun. I'm not trying to get, melee 4 Salamanders elite. I'm not playing that.
Well, and the way you're playing the Salamander Primes, they're not there to do damage. They're there to take a punch.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Defense 5 and throwing the regen on them. So, but to your point, he is the typical Salamander Veteran, but Guiding Flame does give them gain aura elite for melee for Salamander only.
Yeah.
For 20 points, though, that moves them to 85 points. I don't know, 85 points to get elite on a unit that hits on 4s?
Right.
And they do have, 25 attacks, I think, in a Horde?
Yeah, they do.
So, but 25 attacks, I don't...
No.
So you might get to reroll 4 dice, maybe? I don't know. Seems a lot for 85 points, especially considering you're probably not charging with them, because they're only speed 5, right? So
you're normally taking the punch, and they're kind of there to, give a couple wounds back. I'm not looking them to be my punch out there. You'd have to like polish them up, if you want to put Brewer's Sharpness on them to make them hit on 3s. But like right now, I feel like you're putting a lot of work into units that too many points into trying to make a subpar unit better.
The Glade Walker Druid, it's so great. And now let's talk about the little salt in the wound that you guys got, which is the Unicorn.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So we're into the Unicorn now. So the Unicorn is speed 10, melee 3+, defense 5. He's got 3 attacks. He's 12, 14 nerve, 120. All sounds pretty good, right? Well, he got that little thing where we take away the base spells for free, but he didn't get a cost reduction. So now if you want heal 5, it's 35 more points. Lightning Bolt 5 for 35, Wind Blast 5 for 20, or Bastion 2 for 20. You can give him wings, which you lose individual, but you gain fly and nimble and change, and for 25 points. So he does have Crushing Strength 1 and Thunder Charge 1, which makes him pretty solid, but individual, inspiring, and Pathfinder. So we used to see him a lot more. You don't see him as much now. What are your guys' thoughts on the Unicorn?
Wings and heal are fine.
The role that I used to give it was the wings and heal, but I've seen the Unicorn itself with used to great effect in Green Lady with Shadow Beast. It was great to run in and cast those Shadow Beasts and do some wounds and hold people up. Made like a little chaff piece. And then if it had to heal, if it didn't need to do that, it could go around and heal. And then in a pinch, it would go up and hit a unit.
The Unicorn, I still see play though, right? I mean, it's not a terrible unit. It's not that expensive. It's got some tool belt action. And in terms of mobility, it's one of your better mobile casters, right? Like you can go out there if you want them to heal.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a 12-14 on a caster that has unit strength. Even if you focused on nothing else, right? Because it is still a spellcaster 2. It can still take a unique, right? Like knowledgeable.
Yeah, it's a caster.
Celestial. I mean, like if you were going to go that route, if you were going to pay the points, right? You could have a mobile unit strength that's long bombing CR. And because it's the one of the few times where if you were to look at something like that, it would still be pricey, right? But you get more efficiency with command points, and the upgrade going from height 3 to height 4 with unit strength. Now you can see over all your regular elemental hordes, right? There's something to be said about. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that with one. That would kind of be interesting. It'd be a different role, because you can't really do that with any of your other, or you wouldn't be encouraged to do that with any of your other decent spellcasters, right? Like Gladewalker druids, they want to be up in the business, and they don't have the unit strength. I guess the Forest Warden, but it's a spellcaster 0, so you're not going to want to take anything on it because you're going to have to pay. I don't know. That'd be interesting. I don't think it's ever going to be anything that you're going to see like wandering around, because it is a hell of a lot more expensive than what it was. But it probably was too cheap before.
Well, next up we've got the Centaur Chief, which is speed 8, melee 3, range 4, defense 4, 4 attacks, 11, 13 nerve, and 110 points. Crushing strength 2, individual inspiring, mighty pathfinder. You can give him the frenzied otter for 5, and you can gain the ranged attack, which is a 18-inch range, 4+ attack for 10 points. So I have seen this guy used a little bit. I mean, he's a mobile source of inspiring. You can give him a few attacks. But again, you guys don't have a lot of extra unlocks for characters, so I'm wondering if this guy's going to make the cut.
I definitely see a role for this character in a different style of army. Like if you want to go heavy, cheap cav centaur armies, I think this is a great choice. 110 points to go around inspiring, add on those extra attacks. But in my style list, the Centaur Chief is never making it into my list.
I've run the Centaur Chief a couple times, and it was more for the thematics. Like I was running multiple units of Centaurs, so I wanted a Centaur Chief to run with them. If it was Herd, then Moonfang was going with them. But with Forces of Nature, I don't have that option. So, and this is before Flaxhoof, or before this version of Flaxhoof. But honestly, I kind of agree. Like I would rather scrape the extra 50 points together and take a Worm Rider Centurion, right? Have the extra attack, have the unit strength. I mean, I think they're significantly higher nerve, regen, all the bells and whistles, right? Like it's more points, but there's not really a reason not to, unless you're going for some thematic approach.
Next up, we've got the Forest Warden, and he is speed 6, melee 3, defense 5, 3 attacks, 11, 13 nerve, 90 points, crushing strength 2, nimble, pathfinder, scout, and inspiring, with surge 4. And again, the Vernon rule.
Yeah.
So it's got your spidey senses tingling. So I like this guy. 90 points.
Yeah.
Pretty nice utility piece here.
I've never played with him.
Wow, really?
I've only played with him once last year at Blue City Brawl, and this guy was awesome. I just stuck him in front of a horde of ratkin, basically just hold him up, and he stood there, he'd back up. It's like defense 5, 11, 13. It's harder to hit. It's harder to get through than you think, especially if you're giving them hindered charges, right? And they don't have a lot of punch.
I've always seen the benefit for him. I don't know. Every time I build a list, I don't ever have the points to either. I've got too many points to where I'm not looking at a Forest Warden, or I don't have enough points and the Forest Warden just doesn't even come into the. I've seen Devlin used one. I think maybe he used it before it had inspiring.
Inspiring is just a little extra frosting
That's
on
crazy.
the cake, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Because now it's about inspiring himself.
Oh,
so now
yeah.
he can go and do his own thing. He's a budget tree herder.
If they get to the flank, 6 attacks with crushing strength 2 is nothing to sneeze at, hitting on 3s. The nerve is a little bit lower, the 11, 13, but I'm just always a big fan of these little unit strength 1 characters, like a Snow Troll Prime. Big fan of them. He's not as good as a Snow Troll Prime, but I'm a fan of this guy, especially in a pinch. If I need a surge, they're there to surge. But yeah, for 90 points, and now that it inspires, I'm sold on him.
Well, I was just looking at the points, right? They didn't go up in points for inspiring, right?
No.
Yeah, so 3 of them is 10 points more than a tree herder? I mean, obviously there's a lot of different stuff, but you're talking about a budget tree herder. I mean, that's 3 units, 3 unit strength, 9 attacks.
Yep.
On the front, right? Yeah, I mean, and 3 sources of surge plus nimble. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I've never really looked at him.
Alan, you're opening up Bryce's eyes to a whole new world.
A whole new world.
I know. I literally just heard that. I saw like the grainy dude that's singing both parts in the YouTube
You
studio.
got it.
Well, next we have the Naiad Worm Rider Centurion. I'm going to guess you guys don't play this guy at 160 points. Or am I wrong?
No, he's great.
Why do you like him?
You know, what we were talking about, or what I was talking about, I guess, me rambling, comparing him to the Centaur. You know, he's 160 points, right? I think most of the large cav inspiring characters are roughly 140, 150, 160 points. I mean, what is a Thane on Frostfang?
135-ish.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, something along those lines. But speed 8, his quality, right? He's melee 3, defense 5, 5 attacks. He's got good, you know, reasonably good nerve for that. But the big thing is it's a ground bound, crush 1, thunder 1, nimble, inspiring thing that also has regen. 13, 15 in an army like this. 160 points in most armies, I would think, is a little. You look at the large cav characters and they're a little bit expensive, but most of the forces of nature stuff, you're already planning on being elite, so you've got a little bit more wiggle room. But they're good. I mean, they're even if you just looked at them as self-inspiring chaff, they're like a little almost budget knucker. So I don't know. They're solid. I think they're better than the Worm Rider unit.
Yeah, I have no experience with this. Unfortunately, this is more or less I can't fit in more character slots, so I never really got to play with this one.
Well, next let's jump into the Tree Herder. Everybody loves this guy. Height 5, speed 6, melee 3, defense 6, 9 attacks, dash 18, 260. He's only 1 unit strength though, which, you know, it's a little pricey for 260, but he's got some cool stuff. Crushing String 3, Inspiring, Pathfinder, Radiance of Life, Scout, and Strider. Can't give him the Wiltfather upgrade, which you lose Radiance of Life, but you increase attacks to 10, nerves to dash 19, and you gain Aura Vicious Verdant only, and Cloak of Death for 40 points. So that's 300 points. This upgrade cannot be taken in addition to a magical artifact, and you also have the Verdant keyword, so Kapoka would work on this person too, and you'll have Surge 8. So are you guys, I know you guys are, I know, Alan, you're playing this guy, but are you playing regular Tree Herder or are you playing Wiltfather?
Both, one of each, yeah. Defense 6 phalanx is pretty awesome. And then, you know, also if you have the backup weakness too, seems fun. But I don't think I know it's not going to be a shock. Tree Herders are good. I don't think this is like an under the radar unit. Wilt Daddy's been around forever. People know that they're good. If you really want to juice it up, give one of them the nimble item. You know, if you really want to get sneaky, you give the Tree Herder nimble. And that's about the sneakiest I've ever, you know, seen a Tree Herder.
Brew of Haste.
Like with Brew of Haste, you could like, you know, get in their face early game. So there's a couple sneaky things you could do with them, but they've been in this game for so long. I think people know that they're a good unit.
Yeah. Brew of Haste and Meat of Madness on 2 Tree Herders is, if you're playing somebody who didn't plan on being first turn charged by 2 Tree Herders, welcome to the jungle.
I've seen it done. It's been done here. So as soon as I see this, I just like back up off the line. Like when I deploy, like I just, you know, I have it. Now you could catch people that have never seen that out before. You know, you catch them out early game. And then, but it's like one trick pony. Then when you play it again, it's like, once it happens to you, you remember.
You're scarred for life.
Yeah, you're scarred for life. You know, you got trauma. So you'll when you deploy, you're, you know, deploying back, you know, all of a sudden from 12 inches to 10 inches or whatever you need to.
So the weird thing with, I mean, yeah, you're nobody's surprised by Tree Herders, right? But if you do take the Brew of Haste with the air elemental formation, the 14-inch scout, right, on your first turn, launching your air elementals up, it's so much forward pressure. If you do get the 4 points, to where your next 10-inch move, your Tree Herder going 7, right? You're already 33 inches up. Your air elementals don't have to be in line to be an applicable target to surge. You have so much, you know, 33 inches of your movement, right, with your scout and deployment line and off, and then 12 inches plus 3 for the bolster, and then the air elementals are 30 inches up, right? Plus their 12 from the deployment. So it gets kind of wonky with that. So then, and everybody else is already behind. If you've been scarred, you've been bad touched.
Yeah.
In the words of the Bloodhound Gang, then you're going to be further back, and I mean that's what tree herders and defense 6 stuff that aren't shambling they want. They want you in your deployment zone.
Yep.
They don't want you to be able to get through. Especially you're mentioning like looking at the forest wardens, MSU style, like being able to lock somebody in phalanx defense. What they're 11-13, the forest wardens. I mean that's a bunch of thin, thick chaff.
Yeah.
It's like a Snickers mini. Alan, do you surge a lot?
Do I surge a lot?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, I surge
with the tree herders.
Oh no. Not in this style list. The forest wardens are normally the ones that will try to pick that. Now, I'm not saying that if the opportunity would arise, that I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I see an opening where that's my only source of surge, and I know I could get a greater air into the rear, I'll make it happen.
So that's probably a difference in our play style. I use my tree herders for surge probably more than I use them for combat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, because it's I mean, everybody knows, right? They're not a surprise. So everybody is expecting you to melee everyone to death, and they're either coming in and they're ignoring. I find that when the tree herder, or specifically the Wilt Father, right? When the Wilt Father is there and Cloak of Death starts plinking out wounds, that folks they have to try. They tend to be either over aggressive towards the tree herder, which opens up flanks and the rest of the business, or they're a little bit too pensive with how they're moving. And then all of a sudden the tree herder, everybody just kind of, it's not that they forget, they're just not used to them being used as, I use them as stair-step surgers. It's just, I don't know. Most people that I've seen play with tree herders don't, because it's, surge is one of those things where you get it for free on a tree herder.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, like even in the points breakdown, right, for the character building sheet, it's free, but everybody wants them to be in melee. And they're amazing in melee, don't get me wrong. But I find that I'm more apt to set up a good surge with my 2 trees than just slinking them off. But
if I'm paying that much for the trees, I normally want them to be in combat. Now, like I said, if the opportunity would happen to arise, then I'm definitely taking the opportunity. But like I want to get those, good melee combat units into combat, and then I'm taking the 65-point druid or my 90-point forest warden to do the surging for me. Because I mean I really don't want to pay the 300 for a surge, but it's good to catch people off though like that. But I'm going to be more aggressive.
I use them as more of a deterrent.
Yeah, I'm going to be a lot more aggressive with those 2 units than holding them back looking for a surge. Is how I would play it.
Yeah.
Time to get to the unique units. So we've got a few of them. First up is Karis, which I haven't actually seen anybody playing Karis maybe since like 2nd edition, but he's interesting. Speed 5, melee 4, range 4, defense 4, 1 attack, 12, 14, nerve, 80 points, individual inspiring pathfinder. But he's got the solar staff, which is an 18-inch shooting attack. It comes with 8 shots, but he's got blinding light. Units that suffer damage from this unit's solar staff ranged weapon are disordered during their next turn. You can also buy him fireball, heal, lightning bolt, surge, but he's got verdant. I mean, have you guys played this guy before?
I have.
I have not.
This was my answer to the mirror match. Yeah, Karis, I would add on surge, so I had the another surge caster, but I was looking to hit other people's Gladewalker Druid and disorder them. So I was looking to shut down their Gladewalker Druid or shut down the Greater Air Elemental so they couldn't fly.
Just thinking here, so the math, you got 8 shots on 4, so you're going to hit 4 times.
Yep.
But you're shooting a Gladewalker Druid, that's hitting on, you need 5s. So you're probably going to land 1, right? You only need 1.
It was good to shut down a Gladewalker Druid, but normally they're still good at hiding them. But so normally you would try to maybe pick off an air elemental and shut down that flyer. It served a purpose in the mirror match. It was good. But right now I wouldn't be playing this special character.
And I'm assuming, Bryce, you've never seen anybody play this guy before.
I have not. I've looked at him, like, skimming through and trying to think. I mean, the blinding light rule is, especially maybe not after the change, but I could see it for a mirror match. But then it also makes me think of Twilight Kin Abyssal Dwarves. Obviously, the range isn't as crazy, but there's enough damaging, or there have been enough damaging spells to where something like that to shut down a weakness, or put a little extra love somewhere might be worthwhile. But no, he's just one of those weird, same price as Woodland Critters, right?
He used to be broke. So before, the Solar Staff meant you were disordered and you cannot charge.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The old Solar Staff rule said the bear has a single ranged attack with a range of 24 inches that always hits on 4s regardless of modifiers. If the target unit is hit, it is blinded until the end of the following shoot phase. As long as it's blinded, the unit cannot charge and is disordered.
And it was 1 dice.
Yeah, 1 dice, and it was 160 points.
That's pure, I don't even say gotcha. That's just, wow.
I just can't charge. But I do like to even shut down like a horde of shooters for a turn while your air elementals or anything defense 4 gets into position is another great use of the Solar Staff.
Next up, we have Charlotte, speed 10 flying spellcaster, right? Melee is 5 and defense is 3, 12, 14 nerve, 150 points. Fly, individual, inspiring, Pathfinder, has static shock. After dealing damage with this unit's lightning bolt spell, you may choose to immediately cast Wind Blast N on the target unit, where N is the amount of damage inflicted with the lightning bolt spell. And then he also has Gather the Storm. While within 6 inches of another friendly core airbound unit, this unit can reroll all to hit rolls of a natural unmodified 1 with Lightning Bolt, Wind Blast, and Surge. And again, he comes with Lightning Bolt, and he comes with Lightning Bolt 4, Surge 5, and Wind Blast 6 for 150 points.
I think it would be more interesting if Wind Blast and Lightning Bolt were flipped, because of the static shock, right? Because your Wind Blast is based on your Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
Lightning Bolt 4, let's just say you hit twice.
Yep.
Math-wise, I hate to be the math hammer person, but you do one damage with Lightning Bolt, that gives you 1 Wind Blast.
That's what's pointless. It's not good.
Like, if it was Lightning Bolt 6 is probably justifiable enough to take on its own. And then getting the extra, like, maybe Wind Blast 2. That would be a cool special rule then. It's still probably not worth taking, but you would have more seasoning to try to sell it to somebody.
I would even say like you could maybe spice it up. Maybe if it's like within, 6 inches of air elementals, add to its lightning bolt. So almost like how the ogres have the, add on to their spells. If you do something like that to juice up the lightning bolt and make it a little bit better, but as is, I don't like this character at all.
It just feels like somebody wanted to put 4, 5, 6 for the spells.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Who doesn't like that,
I think a lot of people like the next character, which is the Avatar of the Green Lady. She's a spellcaster 3. She's speed 10, melee 5, defense 5, attacks 1, 13, 15 nerve, 150 points. Special rules: fly, individual, inspiring, Pathfinder, and regeneration 5+. She has a rule called balance. At the start of each of your turns, you may choose for this unit to have either Cloak of Death or Radiance of Life, and she has heal 6. And she's got a Verdant too, guys.
She does.
So pretty badass to have Phalanx, Fence 5 with heal 6 and fly. Not bad. And Cloak of Death and Radiance of Life. You guys running her?
I am. Yeah, I run her in a lot of the lists. I think when it first dropped, it was overpriced. I want to say it was like somewhere in like 170 and didn't have Pathfinder. And I was like, I didn't like it at first. And now with the points drop, Pathfinder, I really enjoy the Avatar, the Green Lady. The heal 6 is always great. Being able to fly where you need to get that Cloak of Death off, it's clutch. One thing I would like to see, if I'm wish listing, is maybe like an offensive spell, kind of to match that energy where she's like, healing and she could be upset with the fluff. Like, I can't remember how there was some type of thing with the fluff where she gets mad and, you could get the wrath. I get that with the Cloak of Death, but something like maybe Drain Life. And obviously we would have to bump up the points, but I would like to see possibly like Drain Life added onto her.
That would be cool. Like if you chose Cloak of Death, you would have Drain Life. If you chose Radiance Life, you had Heal.
Correct. Yeah. I would like to see that, and obviously we'd have to adjust the points. But prepping for this podcast, I read over the fluff, and I was like, she could be angry sometimes, and I think that would. I know the Cloak of Death is supposed to represent that, but I'm like, Drain Life would be a great thing. Like she sucks the life out of the enemy and gives it to the forest.
A lot of times we show the characters are getting worse as the game gets more advanced. Like we're dumbing them down, but like, she used to be 200 points in second edition, and she also had Elite, and she had 2 more heal, so it was heal 8. And she gave the ability to buy like some upgrades to some units, and she was also 14-16 instead of 13-15.
Was she defense 6 back then, Rob?
She was defense 6. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out too.
You're welcome.
She was defense 6 too. She was broke, literally, was tough.
Fantastic.
But I think the 50-point reduction with some of the tweaks, like going to defense 5 and losing a couple of heal and not having Elite, totally worth it. I think it's a fair compromise.
Back then we didn't have Mighty, so she was the perfect roadblock in second edition. I would just park her in front of things and make people cry.
So I've never played with her.
Oh, really?
Not once. I've looked at her a lot of many times.
I dabbled.
I can't believe I'm really trying to wrap my head around the fact that she didn't have Pathfinder. Like, how does the entity that encompasses the wood, right? Like all of the druidic spirit, like nature, spirit, whatever power, not oh shoot, a twig. Like I'm done. I'm out.
Well, let's get into Kapoka, the hidden savior. This is the savior for all things that Alan, Alan's going to be wrecking Marcelo's face
I'm
now.
gonna try. I'm definitely gonna try.
So he's a spellcaster 2, speed 5. He has no melee value, which I think is hilarious because he has no attacks.
That is one of my 2 complaints for Kapoka.
Like utility wise, if you had to attack something to drop a dragon, you don't even have the choice.
I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh, I'm Phalanx, and someone charges. I use Kapoka to block, right? Like to set it to where someone can't fit. And I'm like, even the Hail Mary, I can't even do
working.
it. The only reason I could see to do that, and I think that it was either someone charged me and I was going to hit them back to try to ground them, or I was going to charge to use Kapoka to block. Not that she or he is mighty, but I wanted the footprint there so that I could shift my unit to where they couldn't fit in place. And I literally couldn't do it. I was like, I just need 1 attack, right? And I looking at this profile, the old green lady, was it common in the last edition for some characters just to not have attacks? Because at least the green lady now has 1 attack, right? But it looks like the old profile, she didn't have any.
Yeah.
There was just pure spellcasters back in the day that they couldn't fight.
Yeah.
Huh. Unfortunate.
So Kapoka is speed 5, defense 4, 12-14 nerve, 145 points, but also has heal 4 and weakness 3, which is a great combination for a defensive character. But then Aura, Phalanx, Verdant only, individual, inspiring, Pathfinder, scout, and stealthy. All the rules.
Yeah.
So, so now he's scout, so he can get up there with those guys, set that Phalanx trap across the board, and if you do want to punch them, not only are they Phalanx, you're going to weakness them on the way in potentially. So
I think this is definitely a build around character. If you're going to go in on it, you go in on it. If not, then you might as well just leave it at home. With trees, defense 6 with Phalanx, they're just hard to get through. And now you have, your forest wardens, forest shamblers, hunters of the wild, beasts of nature. As we went through, we always kind of said, the running joke there was verdant. But it really can be a nice build around army. And I think if you have trouble facing off against Cav, flyers, this might be something you want to look into, want to give it a try.
I have taken Kapoka in, I've built lists around Kapoka, but Kapoka is one of those characters that I do occasionally, depending on points, will throw in to get a little boost of heal.
Okay.
With the weakness, right? And that's one of the reasons, and maybe it kind of ties into what you were talking about with the green ladies points cost when the edition first dropped.
Yeah.
Because she was more expensive.
Mhm.
I never really cared much for the fly, but if I wanted to get some extra heal for my units, I'm also a little skewed, right? Because I always take 2 regiments of Hunters of the Wild and almost always take 2 tree herders.
Okay.
So I've always got at least 4 units that benefit from Capoca's aura.
Yeah, I think that justifies it right there. Just 2 trees could probably justify it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you take 2 trees, right? Trees are great on their own.
Yeah.
They're a bit pricey now that Titans are unit strength too, but before that, I mean, they're still expensive, but justifiable with that. But you put 2 tree herders and you pie them together to where only one of the 2 of them is going to get hit. That's a bad day for somebody.
Mhm.
And then Capoca behind them, right? So then you've got Cloak of Death going off on 1, Radiance of Life taking some of the damage back off, and then weakness, into something, and Phalanx going into a defense 6 unit. He, whatever. I always use a female Capoca model. That's why I keep referencing she. But she just stacks so well. And then something that one of the extra bonus rules, her having stealthy has been so crucial. It's one of those random things, right? Like pretty much, I can't even think of anything else in the rest of the list that has stealthy, like the rest of the army. But Capoca is that one character that if you are doing a themed list, you are a heck of a lot more likely to kind of stretch your neck out to get that aura phalanx somewhere. And it's a bit easier to, it's always more difficult to shoot at infantry characters, but the having stealth is just that -2.
Yeah.
It's just enough -2, and then you probably are going to have cover, right? So it puts Capoca out of the realm with the defense 4. If somebody can squeeze a charge in there, you're kind of okay with it.
Yeah.
Because if she takes a charge, right, it's not necessarily bait, right? But she's not a surge caster, so you don't really care. So if you're reaching out for that phalanx and somebody does hit her, 12-14 and defense 4 is just good enough to strip enough, and they're not going to be able to shoot. And then you've got all the other surge casters for the rest of your list. So, I mean, I don't know. It was just always something I thought was a really like chef's kiss touch on whoever was tinkering with Capoca that they decided to put stealthy on that character.
Yeah, I agree. It's always nice having stealthy and individual. I mean, that's just perfect.
Yeah, I don't know. It's my 2 cents. Capoca should also be accessible to Sylvankin. I will die on that hill. But I love my Sylvankin because of my characters. I've got some salt in the wound for Sylvankin. 1, Capoca is not accessible. She would make my I would take more Hunters of the Wild in that list than the Glade Stalkers. And then my second qualm that would adjust my list is I don't know why the hell the Sylvankin frogs don't have the leaper rule, but the Trident Realms frogs do. I guess they're just a different breed of frog, but
they don't do good in the woods.
I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to be able to see over my archers. That would be fun. It was one of the armies that I branched off of Forces of Nature because I had all the wood elves, right? So can't really do a full. You can't do a full wood themed army with the Sylvankin guys because Capoca's not in there. So if you didn't want to take a bunch of like Glade Stalkers and whatever, you don't have the verdant support to actually support them. So then you end up taking a bunch of piddly elves.
Well, let's take a quick commercial break. On the other side, we will get into more questions for these guys. We'll be right back.
I'm Crazy Bobby, and you're listening to Countercharge.
So welcome back to Countercharge. First up, guys, give me a sense of where does this army sit on a competitive level in the grand scheme of Kings of War as we sit in January 2025?
I didn't have a chance yet to really get into the tournament scene with it yet, but my style I feel is back, and I don't want to say it was the highest tier, but it's up there, and I feel like it's going to perform well again. Having the greater heirs back at 9, I think will do it for me. It's going to at least let me get my army that I have painted back on the table and start to get some reps with it. So I'm looking forward to that. Whether I take it to some of these earlier tournaments, that's yet to be determined, though.
I think Forces of Nature is always, by its design, going to be no worse than a C, like in a A to F category. But I would say it probably typically sits around a B, right? It's got good access to surge. It's got good variability in units because it's a leap, like it's a launch pad army, right? So it's going to have, like, people are going to be able to flex one way or the other. If they're building salamanders, they're building, so it's always going to be able to compensate for some portions of the meta. It's never going to have all of the answers, but it's going to have it's going to be like a Swiss Army knife with, one tool broken off. It's still worthwhile. It's just not going to be perfect. I think properly piloted, I don't know how you would ever do Forces of Nature not in a top third, just because it's so flexible. And everything's got Pathfinder, except for the salamanders, for some reason.
Alan, what's your prediction for how Forces of Nature players are going to do this year in 2025?
I think they'll do well. I mean, you got a bump with probably, what drew a lot of people to the Forces of Nature. It's not like you're getting an army or a new unit that you haven't played with yet, where we're seeing Abyssals, Forces of the Abyss with some of these new toys that are very good, but people are still getting used to those new toys. This is something you're familiar with. You know how to use it. You know what it does. Some people may have forgot how to play against it, which could help some of these players in the tournament scene. And then, once they, like, oh yeah, I forgot, how bad this army, well, being on the other end of it, how bad it felt. It's full circle, back around and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, everybody's too focused on what the Scorchwing Horde and the Greater Air Elemental is going to do to focus on to really pick up on the rest of the list.
Right.
When you guys look at this army list, what's one change that you would make to it that would make it better?
I think we touched on some of it. Some of the units that we would like to see with the Worm Riders. We talked about, going Crushing 2, Thunder 1. I think that would help, at least in some of the decision making. I talked about the Green Lady possibly getting, an offensive spell. I think that would be pretty fun. Those are a couple of my wish list things.
I've got plenty of wish list things we talked about, but I think if you were going to do one thing that would affect majority of the army, it would be changing Frenzied Otter. We touched several times on only focusing on melee. So then I think most Forces of Nature player, there's other armies to play if you're going to play shooting, right? But it almost further discourages some of the plink shooting because there's not another way to bolster it, and there's not really enough there. I don't know what you would a way you would adjust it that would kind of align with Forces of Nature, because you can't really pick one thing, right? Like even a Frenzied Otter, getting into it because Forces of Nature is so broad. But if they could come up with something with Frenzied Otter, I mean, you know what? Like Frenzied Otter doing something like what it does, like what the Casket does with EOD. Make some of the elementals to where they can scout with the woods, right? Or the salamanders be able to scout like the Whispering Scales formation, right? Or something along those lines where you're leaning into the movement maneuverability. If you're focusing on the elemental aspect of the army, pretty much all of them hit on 4s. So rerolling 3 sporadic, just melee only things are not going to lean into the army. So if they would just, something small where it's a 5 or 10 point thing to change, would be worthwhile. That's not something Frenzied Otter is not even an option, I don't think, on the wooded units.
Just give him Vicious for a turn.
There's got to be a way to change Frenzied Otter to make it more useful.
Well, because here's the thing, right? Frenzied Otter can't be taken on the Verdant units, right? So it's not even an option. So the Scout wouldn't matter, if you did something with Scout, because the Verdant units all have Scout. But the Verdant units also have access to Vicious through the Wiltfather, whereas none of the other stuff does. It's super weird that the army special rule doesn't apply to majority of the army, which is elementals, right? I mean, you got 4 lesser elementals plus the forest shamblers. You've got 4 greater elementals, right? None of those things can take Frenzied Otter. And then all of the trees can't take Frenzied Otter. So the only thing that actually use the army keyword, the army upgrade for a unit, are like the feeder units that go into other armies, right? Salamanders, the Naiad units. It's kind of odd, right? That it doesn't apply to most of the like meat and potatoes of the army. It kind of applies to all the elective courses.
And we're seeing that, though, I think, even with some of the newer armies, like Twilightkin, for example. Not every unit gets Blood Hex, but it's still a great rule. I mean, nobody's going to say that Blood Hex isn't good, because it is. And then even like with Northern Alliance Tundra Fighter, it doesn't affect everything. So it's kind of the same thing here with Frenzied Otter, but Frenzied Otter is just not good. They can figure out some rule to make that better. It doesn't have to affect every unit, but as long as it's good and it works, I think we would all be happy.
So if I was going to pick one thing, right, like I've got my own personal qualms and complaints, but if they were going to change one thing to benefit the like majority of the army or the synergy of the army, that would be it. I don't know what that's going to be, but pissed off pigeon instead of frenzied otter or something.
From a thematic standpoint, though, this is definitely the elemental army. If you want to play elementals, this has the access to all of it. But man, this army, maybe talk to this army has so many different ways you can play, whether you're leaning into the tree guys, just standard elementals, Greed Lady faction where you've got a little bit of Trident Realm, a little bit of Salamander, So, I mean, just speak to that. I mean, the fact I think you kind of alluded to earlier, like there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different tools in this list that you can adjust.
Thinking this to myself earlier, if you modeled woodland critters as rat swarms, then I'm not for sure there's an army that this army doesn't feed into.
It'd be interesting to see how many other armies of the 28 have units that are in this list. It's probably a lot of them. Because, I mean, when you just think about the elementals, either you're talking about fire, water, forest, or air, the elementals really do spread out.
That's what I have my son playing. Like when he plays, this is the army. I mean, he's 9, right? So he's still like learning the ropes. It's perfect for him because then he can choose, right? So he started playing with it. It was like, I think I want to do something with mermaids or mermen or whatever. I was like, oh, it's perfect. We've got naiads, we have heart piercers and ensnarers. You can transition into that. And then if he's like, he gets into the the water elemental aspect of it. It's like, you know what? I want to do rocks now. Then he can go dwarves. He can go abyssal dwarves. He wants to go mean rocks, right? Like it transfers so well.
Is there something in this list to make it effective on the table? You have to include certain units?
No, I don't think have to. I mean, there's definitely, units that are always my go-to just because I feel they're very flexible. But I don't ever, I'm like, when I build a list, I mean, for a long time, the formation was auto-include for me. I loved it. I loved having the ability to regen. I loved the heal in the army. And they just played to my strength and what I wanted to bring to the table with this army. Like I said, when I pick an army, I normally decide what I want that army to do, and then I try to build a list around that. And when I decided to do Forces of Nature, it was regen, heal, and surge. And that's what I wanted to do. And the formation was always an auto include for me. So probably to this day, I still probably just open it up, start with the formation and go from there. Except for the new list, what I'm going to try to do with Phalanx. That I'm going to try just because Alpha Strike seems to be catching on here a little bit. And we're going to see if that could slow it down.
As far as like an auto include, I have a hard time not including tree herders. Pretty much every single list has at least one tree. I'm not for sure if I've ever built a Forces of Nature list without one tree, as far as tree herders are concerned. Everything else, even the formation, is relatively flexible to me. But them and, even the Gladewalker Druid without the ring, the versatility of the Gladewalker Druid has me constantly trying to work them in, but tree herders are my one. I'm almost positive I've never built a list for Forces of Nature without one tree.
How does this army play at scenario?
Depends on the style of Forces of Nature that you build, right? I think if you go with the typical Forces of Nature, and I say typical as in like the core being the formation or elementals that are supported by some odd and ends. It does really well with scenarios that it doesn't have to spread out too far. Like it works really well in a block, works really well as a counter puncher, and threat projection. Has a harder time spreading out, but see, that might not be as much of an issue with a list like Alan's where he's got the hordes of salamanders, because he can just sit back and hold 4 objectives, and then the rest of the army can go run amok. But it doesn't have the high drop, high unit strength count that a lot of other armies have.
Yeah, I found very low unit strength in a lot of the lists I build. And that's actually kind of why I wanted to start including the salamanders for that extra unit strength. Because a lot of my lists were 19, right around there, that 19 mark. And it's like, you didn't want
19 to 21.
Yeah, you didn't want to lose the unit because you were already starting to go down. And
so Forces of Nature also operates a little bit wonky with that too, right? Like a lot of times when you see, at least when I build units or armies that have 19 to 21, 22 unit strength, they typically have a lot of range damage output.
Yeah.
So you've got, sharpshooters or like claw shots. You've got war machines that, didn't count for unit strength, but were drops, or lightning bolt casters. Forces of Nature doesn't operate like that. So when you look at it outside of the vacuum and compare it to some of the other armies, where you're like, oh man, I've got plenty of armies that have 21 unit strength, but they've also got, 60 ranged shots or 40 ranged shots and, 10 spells or whatever. Forces of Nature, there's not really anything offensive coming around. So you really have to use your unit strength.
Yeah. It's depending a lot on regen and heal to keep those unit strength alive and well. That's what I was banking on when I'm like, okay, it's low, but you do have regen and you do have heal. So when they take damage, you can heal them back. And it's almost like, oh, now it's a new fresh unit.
Your turn did nothing.
That's how I justified the low unit strength on this army.
When you guys are playing this army, do you find you have to use a lot of magical artifacts?
100% with the formation. Like I said, like you had to put artifacts on the lesser air elemental hordes. I love putting items on the druids, the Gladewalker druid. Every time I put it in, it automatically came with Crown of the Wizard King. So yeah, I found that I was using in this list more
Crown of the Wizard King or Shroud?
No, Crown of the Wizard King. I wanted an 18-inch range on my Surge.
Oh, okay.
That's the other build out is with the Shroud. But no, I 2 casts at 18 inches. I could get to wherever those greater airs would be, and it came in clutch a lot. So that became auto for me.
So I've not one time ever considered that. But then again, I also use my tree herders differently to where I have the length of Surge. So maybe that's why. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Almost right there with you. At formation, I don't see how you could ever, in your right mind, take that formation and not put some kind of item on those lessers. I will say that since command points have been used, I am less likely to take items on my Gladewalker Druid. I used to almost always, it was like an auto include for Shroud. But now with the ability to get a reroll, right? Like I don't necessarily need the extra 2 heal, especially when Shroud got, dropped down by 1. If I needed to shave points, all of a sudden that was a spot that I could shave. So, draw either reroll or increase the value.
Like things like Conjurer Staff is not as important now with, if you do have the command dice, if you're playing with that, because like things like Bane Chant, instead of Bane Chant 2, you're getting Bane Chant 3, essentially.
What points level do you think this army plays best at?
2,300 or bigger?
Yeah, I'm always, whatever the tournament scene is, that's what I get stuck in. So right now it's 2,300. Almost, every single game I play is 2,300 because I'm always practicing to go to a tournament. So I feel like I get stuck in whatever the normal value that tournaments are playing at. So right now, 2,300 is the number I'm at.
I'm always pro more points. I think Kings as a game excels when there's a lot more variance, and lower points encourages alpha strike and shooting. So especially if you're not placed, if it's pre-placed terrain, right? You don't have as much variance. So the higher the points, the better. But when you're talking about a 2,300 point army that's got 19 unit strength, if you were to shave off 300 points, I mean, you're down to peanuts. So it just, I don't know. Forces. I've never felt. I've played it at 2,000 several times and done okay with it, but it always feels like it's two pieces short of a full puzzle.
What can't this army do?
It can't do ranged very well. If you were going to go for a general approach to Forces of Nature, there are a couple things, unless you do an absolute skew list like Radigan's list, which I wouldn't even factor in, right? You're almost always deploying in a block, right? You're either going to go like center left or center right, or you're going to do like a denied flank. You don't want to get encompassed on two sides because then you don't have enough units and a unit strength to be able to do that. And that's a little limiting, right? Because you don't have as much, right? It's a more of elite army. So it's hard to do spread out objectives. Even if you're doing a scout wood-based army, almost the entire premise of that army is based around Kapoka. So you've got a 13-inch circle, right? Where of her aura, she's heavy infantry. So 25-inch or 25 millimeter base, and then you're 6 inches. So you're still locked into that block. Whereas like a horde style army that's running a bunch of hordes of infantry, or MSU where they can do 20 units like goblins or whatever, they can spread out and do whatever the hell they want. They can lose 20 units and still have 5 on the table somehow. Forces of Nature is kind of limited in that across the board, but they struggle with ranged. Even if you do like an MSU style build, you really have to penny pinch to get a effective long range army. Well, I mean, there's not an option to have a long range army, but you get the penny pinch to get an effective mid range army, right? You've got Heart Piercers at 18-inch range, so you've got a 23-inch range with their move. You've got the Stalkers. You've got the overpriced Unicorns with Lightning Bolt. The Greater Air Elementals. It's like Lightning Bolt 3. So you're talking about 200 points for 3 Lightning Bolt. Like that's not anything you're going to actually actively consider. So Forces of Nature has got to be a little bit more selective with that. So you're never going to have access to a high enough amount of shooting and damaging spells to force players into you. You have to use your positioning and surge potential or scout to limit, to really pigeonhole folks into what you want them to do.
I'd say the Hunters though and the Scorchwings could, if you really wanted to go for that shooting style. The Centaur Hunters now hitting on 4s with their shots. You try to do something like that for shooting, and then obviously the Scorchwings went up in price, but still can.
Well, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Andy from Mantic Games, and you're listening to Countercharge.
Welcome back to Countercharge, and next up, let's get into the community questions that you asked on our Facebook group. All right, we'll start with Tom Freeman's question. Has the command order to remove shambling made air elementals more viable?
Oh, 100%. That goes without question. It made them much more deadly. So when you're playing against shambling, you always have to be thinking ahead. Like, what are they going to do? How are they going to do this? Being able to remove the shambling ability, you can't predict that. Like, you can't stay 20 away all the time, or you're just going to be very, very cagey. So the ability just to be like, okay, they're going to lose shambling for a turn. I'm going to pop over your lines now, or I'm going to head this way. Now, it is going to give you a turn. Like, you still have to next turn, then turn them around and move. But it's just something that your opponent has to consider at all the time. And I think that's valuable to make your opponent think, waste their clock. Air Elementals getting that ability to me was clutch, because they're also on the 50. It makes them able to get to those tight places. So yes, to answer that question, it made them much, much, much better.
Now you have that option at the end of the game on some of those scenarios where you can reach out and touch some stuff. You're trying to get to an objective or get a loot token or something. I mean, it does provide you a lot more options.
Comes down to get those tokens. like that. You say you could just pop in and move to that. I didn't even like really think about that. I'm more thinking about combat wise, but yeah, scenario wise, that's another great ability just to do it, pop and go.
So next up, we got Florence. She's got a couple questions here. Her first one is, are Scorch Wings too good to the point that they're an auto include?
We got to see that spam. We got to see that list in Masters, and it did well. No doubt they were good, and honestly, they probably could even went up a little bit more in points.
Right, so the price went up. The regiment's 130 now, and the Horde is 215. So it's went up by 15 points on the Horde.
15 points. It did, yeah, because I remember in play testing this question, I still thought that was too cheap. I said 225. That's what I wanted Scorch Wings to be. So I do still think that you're getting value for them. It's nice to have, I think, 2 hordes of them flying around. Now, I personally don't use them. It's just not what I'm trying to get out of my Forces of Nature list. I'm going to do, I have the Frost Claws for my Northern Alliance to do all that. But yeah, I could easily see taking 2 hordes. You could probably still do this spam if you really wanted to. One problem is that you have to get used to those big footprints, though. So even if you're going to horde them up, it's hard to kind of fit every single shot into range where you want it. So just keep that in mind if you're going to go that route. You're going to need some practice game.
It's a Chariot regiment base.
Yes, like they're big.
They are height 4, which is a huge thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You just to get all those shots because the range on them is 18. I know I had a hard time when I was trying to do the skiff spam a little bit, but then you were shooting from the flank, so that made it even harder. But I was like, I could see why like the Scorchwing list might not be able to center every single shot that it wants to at a target because it's hard to get those footprints where you need them. But yeah, it would be a viable list still, I think.
What about a Centaur based list? You got any ideas?
I don't think it would be in Forces of Nature where I would want to do that. I think I'd move that to the Herd. Because I believe you do have the special character Flaxhoof that gives the ability to all centaurs. So if you're going to go that route, look to the Herd, I would say.
She also asks, does the Captain Planet list work, where you take all 4 greater elementals?
All greater elementals. I've never personally run all 4 in one list. I've run some versions of all the different elementals in list, but never just all 4 graders.
That's like half your points.
Oh, that would be a lot, yeah.
Yeah, like 1,000 points and 8 unit strength.
Yeah. So, yeah, they would chew through a lot of your points. Would it be fun? Absolutely. But yeah, you could do it with hordes and graders. I mean, I've easily done that. I had earth, water, air, a horde of fire.
Well, let's jump over to Kyle Poole. He asks, is the Tree Herder the best of the D6 monsters?
Best of the D6 monsters in just Forces of Nature or just in general?
I would open up to any D6 monster.
To any D6 monster. I really like Golok's Fury as probably one of my favorite Defense 6 monsters. In Forces of Nature, it's definitely the best Defense 6 monster. Wilt Daddy's, I always upgrade the Tree Herder to Wilt Daddy if I can. He's just a beast. I mean, it's hard to kill him. Easy to get him into spots with that 50. Still one of the 50 mils, which hasn't got moved up to the 75. So I really like the Defense 6 Tree Herders. And yeah, I'd probably say that my favorite is Golok's Fury and in all the world.
And he also wants to know why the Unicorn with Host Shadow Beast is so good.
That is an awesome combo. I don't think there's anything I want to elaborate on that. Normally when I have to face off with that against Green Lady, it's just good for running up and sticking a unit in place and then getting your hard hitters to hit that next unit. Like, it just holds up combats and it's great. The Unicorn went up in price. Yeah, and I don't. You don't have to kit them out anymore, so you don't have to buy anything extra. You could just take Host Shadow Beast on it, but it's just such a flexible piece. As you could use heal. You take the lightning bolts. It moves 20. It is a great piece. So yeah, put Host Shadow Beast on it. Run it into something. Cast it. Hold something up. Let your hammers come in and delete it. It's a great piece.
Yeah, because I mean the Unicorn is 120 points base, and then you can add Host Shadow Beast for like 15 if you want the 2 or 20 for the 3.
I mean, it's a little expensive, so you don't want to put a whole, you don't want to kit it out where it's up to like 170 points or anything like that. But even, I don't want to say it's just a chaff piece, but it can be a chaff piece in a pinch, or it could be something to add wounds on where you need to add the wounds on. It's just a great flex piece, and it makes a lot of lists.
You wouldn't put the wings on.
You don't have to. No, not at all. I don't.
Well, I guess it's speed 10, so you don't really.
Exactly,
I guess you don't
yeah.
need the fly. Yeah.
And once again, then you're starting to get higher in the point total too. So, but it's nice, because when you do add the wings, it scores. But I've seen the best results when I play against it when it's actually no wings, just a little, 25 by 50 and just running into you and holding you up, and it's hard to kill back. So
with the wings and so Shadow Beast, though, you're talking 160 points, so it's getting pricey.
Yeah, exactly. So it gets expensive quick.
Well, the next question we got is from Keith Conroy. We were just talking to her a minute ago. What's the best elemental regiment you can take?
My favorite is the Earth Elemental Regiment. Dash 15, defense 6, brutal. I mean, they're not putting out damage, but when I'm playing this list, I love that regiment piece to hold people up and to sneak my elementals behind it. And I have a lot of heal in a lot of my list, so it's just really hard to get them off the board for the price, especially that Dash 15 and defense 6. It's brutal, and in my opinion, I think that's probably the best regiment. And then maybe fire elementals, or if you want to scout, or I shouldn't say that, not fire elementals. I would go with the Forest Shamblers, and that's because they could scout, and I love scouting them up and then moving air elementals up behind them turn 1. So it actually, you're able to like really kind of get out there and threat with them. So my experience, I guess, with regiments are pretty much thick chaff pieces. I'm not looking to hammer anything with them.
So on that note, Mark Zielinski does ask, what is the best way to get Forest Shambler and elemental regiments to punch harder?
That's not their role. I don't think that's the answer to that.
Take something else as your answer.
Yeah. Take something else as the answer. Like I'm not going to invest Brewish strength on them. I mean, I do in a couple of my lists. I run Bane Chant, but that's normally not my target for my Bane Chant unless they get a flank. Then I'm thinking about it. But yeah, I'm not going to try to make regiments punch harder. Like they have a role in the army, and that role is to hold things up, protect other key pieces that I'm moving. So yeah, take something else. If you want to hit harder, take something else.
Alfred asks, how can salamanders be useful in Forces of Nature? And I know we touched on it, but just recap.
Yeah, I am becoming a fan of them. I actually just bought 15 more so I can do my hordes up that match my army. So this comes down more with command dice. So if you're not playing with command dice, maybe this theory won't work as much. But if you are playing with command dice, it is a nice big horde of salamander primes, eats up a lot of board space, and having the ability to regen is what I've been enjoying with them. I might even take Pathfinder item, Sir Jesse's boots, and park one in the Fars if I need to. But yeah, they take up a nice amount of board space, and having they're pretty high nerve at being defense 5, and then just having the ability to regen them has been great. So regiments, you might be able to do like a checkerboard style with some of them, but in my personal experiences, I would try the hordes out and see if you could make them last longer. They're a good price too. They're pretty cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I think the regiment's problem is they're slow, right?
Yeah,
so
they're slow.
They're going to get hit, and if they take the first punch, they might not survive.
Yeah, they're not going to.
The horde gives you the chance to counterpunch.
Yep, and then regen those wounds back, heal them back.
Erasmus says, Forces of Nature feels like a first edition army. How would you update it for 4th edition?
What would I upgrade? What would I like to see, I guess?
They weren't around in 1st edition. They didn't come out till 2nd edition. But I think what he's alluding to here is that it's like, it feels like the lore really hasn't moved very much.
Yeah.
It really hasn't been an evolution like some of the other armies like Brother Mark.
Yeah.
Mechanically, how would you update them?
Mechanically, that's a good question. I mean, I really dig their fluff. Like I love like all the elemental styles. I love that you have different fractions from around Panathor all in one army. Like that kind of makes them unique. Like that they have all these different races. I would like to see maybe more verdant units, like that would be only in forces of nature. That would, I think, like be like pretty cool, like different types of forest shamblers or something like that, or spirits or sprites or something like that, and lean more into that theme of more of the forest, like the forest coming alive. That would be an idea for forces of nature, I would think.
It's got things for everybody, right?
Mhm.
But I would pull back from that, and maybe you don't have the Trident Realms and the Salamanders
Yeah.
and stuff. You just focus on the elementals,
Yeah.
right? And have an elemental army with some druids.
Yeah, and if they want to go any fluff wise, I mean, I don't know, like I don't know too much about the fluff, but something that would fit in that theme, if they're angry with the ocean, that's why they leave or something, who knows? But yeah, they would have to lean into that a little bit more.
Our favorite elf player, Keith Mandel, asks, how long is the average lifespan of a lumberjack in Panathor?
Oh, it depends on where they're at, I guess, huh? In Panathor, but if they're by the Green Lady, it's not going to last too long.
The Forest of Galahir.
Yeah, they're not going to last too long trying to cut down the trees there. They get pretty angry about that. Yeah, no forestry there.
So Dylan Scribner asks, do you find a fully kitted unicorn, fly, heal, lightning bolt a little too overcosted now?
Yeah, I think we almost kind of touched that on the last question. Like, I don't want to sink that many points into something unless it's really needed in your idea of what you want it to do. Like, if you need the heal, you got to pay for the heal. If that's what you want to do, fly it around, score late game. But you don't, if you're low on unit strength, maybe put the wings on it. If you're not, maybe save the points a little bit. But yeah, don't try to like put every single ability on it that you can. Try to figure out what it's going to do in your list and then kit it out based on your needs of that list.
Next up, we've got Gustav. What are strategies or advice for playing a verdant scout heavy list? I know we touched a little bit on it before, but give us the recap. Because by the way, have you had a chance to play your army that you have designed?
Not yet, because we were just in Disney. We've been doing some vacations. This next weekend coming up, we're busy again. I'm like waiting to get some practice games in here, but I do have some ideas with it, and it more comes for you have your heavy scout on, right or left, depending on what the board looks like. Use your scout ability, keep a nice, good center. That's, you want that center to hold, and then like a fiend flank, like just trying to make sure that they don't just wrap right around you. And I like having like maybe like an air, like the 2 air elementals in the middle, and then just try to, swing around them and then get up and surge your greater air elementals into the spots that they need to get into and try it from there. But once again, that's all theory. I'm going to see if it works, but it's fun to have, if you're going that verdant style, take, the phalanx, try it out, take the weakness, try it out, have fun with it. The problem, like once we go back, is to like them putting the damage output. You're probably going to need a Bane chant. You're going to need maybe a Hammer Measure Force, or you rely a lot on the Treeman to do the damage in those types of lists.
So next up, we have a question from Matthew. He says, if I take the limit 1 magic item on the big druid, I'm assuming he means Ring of Harmony.
Yeah.
The way it's worded, it looks like I can double cast things.
Mm-hmm.
Sparkskin, so long as it's on an elemental unit. Is this accurate? The Ring of Harmony says once per turn after casting a spell targeting a friendly elemental unit, this unit may immediately target a different friendly core elemental unit with the same or different spell. So yeah, you could double cast Sparkskin. It's just got to be on a different unit, right?
One of the cool ones, wasn't Barkskin, but it was Celestial Heal. You could bomb Celestial Heals onto greater Earth Elementals, defense 6, and just keep them, have 2 greater Earth Elementals traveling around and just bombing big heals off on them.
All right, next up, we've got Thorben. He says, background-wise, Forces of Nature is an alliance-type army that represents the combined, easily available forces of the nature-aligned factions. Does this aspect come across on the tabletop? If not, what would you change to improve it? So I don't think it comes across. I think it just feels like anything that's related to the nature, they just throw it in there. And
yeah,
what I mentioned before, I think I would get rid of the allied stuff.
Yeah.
Like the salamanders, the ensnarers, that kind of thing. And I would just strictly keep it nature. So I would just do an elemental
nature
army.
only.
Make it feel a little bit more unique for me. What about you, Alan?
is he asking that the alliance of all the different races? Because in that case, then yeah, I feel like it does come through because we do have all this different units in the army, but does it portray as just nature? No, not really. Like, because you have salamanders, you have, different things there. But yeah, as an alliance of all the different races coming together, I feel like that is portrayed well because you have access to all of them. Now, I would want more nature focus, like kind of how you just said, and where we want it maybe to see in fourth is more just that.
Yeah, and I think you hit on the head. Like when I think of salamander primes,
Yeah,
I think of salamanders.
right. Yeah,
Right? That doesn't ever say to me that's a nature army.
Yeah.
I think there's some opportunity though to make it more unique.
And like Trident Realms, I really don't think of nature really too much.
When I think of nature, specifically the Green Lady, I'm thinking of a forest.
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly. That's
just what I'm thinking of, right? I don't think underwater, and I don't think sailing lizards.
No, I don't. Like I could see wood elves. Like I think of that. Like I could see them in there. Like I do think of that. But some of the other ones, not as much.
That's interesting that you bring that up too, though, because they are obviously the Sylvankin.
Yep.
Are aligned to nature, right? I almost see them as more of a nature army.
Yeah.
Than salamanders.
Yeah, 100%.
Mattias says, I hear that Force of Nature can play a grind list style. Is that true? And if so, are grind lists even viable when everyone is making sure to have units that can reliably remove a defense 5, 15, 17 in one go?
Yeah, I played a grind style list of nature for a good while. So my grind style was the regen, 2 hordes of water elementals, the formation. So I had 2 regen air elemental hordes, and then I had the greater air elemental with regen as well. The Green Lady was there to fly with them to be able to heal and keep everything inspired. And then I had 2 druids, both with heal, and then I had the Glade Walker druid with heal. And I used the regiments of earth elementals to block. So you need to be able to take the hit. So you just can't let those units go out. If you're playing against something that will remove 15, 17, somewhere in that range, you got to try the best you can to not just let your big units take the hits. Like you have to block them or make sure that it's hindered charges or something. And then you use greater air elementals to jump lines, get flanks, get rears, and you are going to lose. Like that army was a low unit strength, and I got like a lot of the times I wouldn't have a lot of my army, but I had enough of my army to score objectives at the end.
And finally, we have a question from Mo. He said, if you were to rework Forces of Nature, how would you give it a more unique faction flavor thematically? As it stands, their units are dispersed among other armies. And I think that's exactly the problem I have, is that it just feels like you've taken different units from 4 or 5 different armies and pulled it into one, and it doesn't feel like it's unique at all.
Yeah.
Like when I think of nature, you mentioned like we were talking about the idea of like the forest. I always think back to Narnia, like the Battle of Baruna, like the big.
Yeah.
You got centaurs and you got minotaur and you got like on both sides just going at it. Now the problem is you got the herd, and so some of those things are already somewhere else, and then you've got Sylvankin with their elves and like their Pegasus, Green Lady with the Pegasus Knights. I would probably simplify it and just pull it back to, like I said, just to the elementals. As I say that, I would love to see herd part of Forces of Nature.
Oh yeah,
right. Because I mean, you already have centaurs, right, in the Forces of Nature list. I hate to say this, but when I think of Forces of Nature, a lot of times I think of really what I'm thinking of is a herd army.
Yeah,
right. Or I'm thinking of an elemental army. I don't know. What would you do to Forces of Nature?
I always wanted to paint up some Minotaur. That's like one thing I never painted up was Minotaurs, and I kind of think of WoW and the Tauren. And like how they have the trot, like kind of like that thing, like that's kind of Forces of Nature-ish, but obviously that would be more herd. Like but I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. And I know we say like we have all these races, and it feels like they're thrown together in Forces of Nature, but it kind of does make that unique because I don't know about too many other armies that have all those races as an alliance. Like as much as it kind of just feels like it just feels like an easy way out. Like it's like, oh yeah, we were just gonna throw these all in there, but it does kind of make it unique a little bit. But I would like to see more. Like I said, I think forces of nature. I'm thinking trees. So what is in like Warhammer? You have, I think they're called Chronos Hunters or something like that. They're the big treemen with bows and stuff like that. Like I would love to see like different tree units or
Treekin, treemen.
like yeah, like that's what I think of when I think forces of nature. So if they would lean more into that, and I don't, you'd have to have their their department or the fluff people come up with something. But yeah, like that's what I think of when I think of forces of nature, or like you said, like elementals. But you know who's not there? That's an elemental, ice elementals. I don't know why they never made it.
Well, because probably melt in the forest. But as you say that though,
Yeah.
I was just criticizing the fact that we have all these units from other armies.
Yeah,
The elementals are in every other army too, right?
Yeah.
So like salamanders have the fire, and then there's Brotherhood that have the water, and
yeah.
again, I don't know if that's going to make them unique either.
I want to see a greater ice elemental. There's also no greater ice elemental.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like there's a greater elemental of every single one except the ice elemental. I'm like, huh.
I guess the argument is that ice is really just water frozen.
Yeah, yeah, but it allows me to shoot. Apparently,
It
when
does.
they're frozen.
Yeah, it does. It does a lot of that.
Yeah.
For some reason, all of a sudden, I'm thinking like, I would love to see like an eagle army, not with people on them, just
Yeah.
like straight up like Lord of the Rings style eagles.
Yeah, I guess, yeah,
or birds, and just like an avian army
Yeah.
would be cool.
yeah. Like you could, I guess, forces of nature. Like you could like lean into creatures, like creatures of the forest, like units. Like just think outside the box, I guess, and I guess it depends on too. Like there's all different types of forests. You got like the jungles, and then you do have, so like, do they want to lean into like that style and go like some crazy cougars or something like that, like a fast unit? I mean, you could do that and remove like things like centaurs, but I think centaurs are forces of nature or herds.
They feel more forces of nature than salamanders.
Right. So I don't know. They just have to think outside the box and make some new units.
Spiders.
Yeah, like something like that. Like, yeah, it depends on like I said, like we think like I was thinking, oh yeah, like ice elementals, but there's farce like up here and then in Canada, all those cold places.
Well, yeah, you got nature up north, right?
Yeah, everywhere, right? It's it's what it comes down to, and like with Kings of War, you could theme your army pretty much however you want. You can go with a good theme. So
Force of Nature is that central army that plays that swing point between good and evil, and they're always there in the strife of always looking to balance Panathor. And it's just weird that like that's the one army that doesn't feel as flavorful as they could.
Yeah,
because they are sort of the default, like, hey, it's not good, it's not evil.
Yeah,
well then it must be nature.
Just put it in there.
We should post stuff. I'd be curious what other people think. There's got to be some good ideas to make it a little bit more interesting. I mean, I think from a play style, I think there is some cool builds there, and I think there certainly is some cool things. And I think they have been trying to lean more into elementals, obviously like the Ring of Harmony, right?
Yeah,
like that's on the nose that they're really trying to lean into that. I'm thinking almost like Chaos. Back when we played Warhammer Fantasy, where you would pick like, oh, I'm Slaanesh, I'm Tzeentch, I'm whatever. It's well, what if you said I am Verdant, and now you have like a tree army, or I am, I don't know what you would call the Earth army, or the Water army, but like, and being able to actually get some perks by choosing a single god.
Right.
I'm air quoting there.
Yeah.
There's something there. And somebody smarter than me. Maybe we have to get like Ben Stoddard and some of the Mike Rossi together, and have their go at it and figure it out.
That would be a cool idea. I like that idea. You lean into like one aspect of Earth, or fire or something like that, and you get bonuses for it. Yeah, I as far as Kings of War goes, you're starting to see like that unique style come out now in armies. Though, like when I first started in second edition, it was almost like you picked your army. There was almost every army almost kind of had like the same units, but like almost all the elves got elite, and that's kind of like what made them special in Kings of War. But now you're starting to see like things like the Ring of Harmony, or like these one-use characters, and it's giving armies a lot of flavor, which I personally like. But I know sometimes people used to love just how simple Kings of War was, and so like as you get more complex, do you start losing people that just want to do something simple, but I personally do like flavor and, you know, and understanding that army and how it plays, and it plays different on the tabletop, and that's why I want to play it.
I'm 100% with you. I like, at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I like all these auras, and, you know, I was like, oh. But I think ultimately what needs to happen is if you have an army, and North Forces of Nature is a good example, take away some of the options.
Yeah.
And then what's left, really lean into that and give them some cool shit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, you know, I don't know in terms of I don't know what army has the most units, but good Lord, there's a ton in Forces of Nature.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
you could trim the fat.
You could trim some of the fat, and you could probably make some of these more impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Get your take on this, Alan. I'm curious, like, there's a lot of armies that share units. They can share them, but that doesn't mean they have to be the same.
No.
Right? So, for example, let's just throw out, like, Hunters of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
They could be different. I mean, yeah, they're based the same, you know, the same base size and stuff, but they could have other things, like, to show that they are now part of the Forces of Nature as opposed to, you know, something else. I mean, Centaurs would be another example. Like, we know how they play in the herd.
Yep.
But if there's a way to make them play a little bit differently in Forces of Nature, it could be interesting. Because, I mean, I guess I like the idea in the sense that you do have units you could paint for one army and it works in another army.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool if they were a little bit different.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I agree with that. Now, do you mean like change them stat wise or just model wise?
Modeling, they're exactly the same. But I think maybe they play differently, whether they have different stats or they have a different aura.
Yeah. So a good example, like how you said with the Centaurs, like, and this came up the question earlier, but I like having you know, we have a character in the herd that allows them to play different, you know, so that's kind of nice. And I wouldn't mind seeing something like that, you know, and there's also, I guess, different salamander characters that have different auras too, that maybe if you want XYZ, you go use that. And I like that, and that's great.
Yeah, because it gives them Pathfinder or Life Leech or whatever you want.
So we can see with that. I don't know if I would like changing stats going to a different army.
Because if you change your stats, you have to change the points.
Yeah, you had to change the points, and then it also confused. Like now you start to get like now you have to know every single unit and every single 28 armies or whatever. Like, you know.
So you're talking just a synergy then. Like,
yes,
the unit's the same. Yes. But when you're in combination with this other character,
correct? Yeah,
maybe a command order, maybe a new aura. Things are mixing it up a little bit, you know. And I think it makes sense thematically because, you know, it's sort of like Centaurs. Yeah, they're part of the herd, but like when they heed the call of the Green Lady, they come and there's some other perk, some other benefit to following in her service. But I don't know. This is the one army that it's like an enigma because on the face of it, I love animal armies. Like you were talking about the Tauren. I got these models from Westphalia Miniatures. They're Bisator. They're bison minotaur dudes. And they're awesome. But I don't want to play a herd army.
No.
But I would love to find a use for them.
Right.
Owl bears? An owl bear sounds like a perfect thing
great idea.
for a Force of Nature army, right?
Yeah, that would be cool. I'd like to see that there. That's a unit I'd like for an owl bear.
Well, I think that's going to wrap this Forces of Nature army review. Huge thanks to Bryce and Alan for joining me for the review. And until next time, keep countercharging.
Thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time on Countercharge. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at counterchargepodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter at countercharge15, or by commenting on the Countercharge Kings of War podcast Facebook group. If you enjoy the show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Until next time, keep countercharging. Music is a composition of Kevin MacLeod and is licensed under Creative Commons.